Welcome back to the Spencer Statement, a podcast where my friends and I take a deep dive into the Resident Evil series. I'm Vanessa, aka Vanessa Sketch, and with me again are my buddies, Chris, aka Jabberwocky1986, or Chris Jabberwock. I think you've got both, right?
Yes. Jabberwocky1986 is on Twitch. Chris Jabberwock on Twitter. Hello.
There you go. And Paul, aka Castlerook Blogs.
How you guys doing?
Pretty good. I mean, other than, like, you know, the crushing weight of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, basically every day in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, Americans in 2020, you know how it is.
No, I know the world in 2020, though.
Yeah, I mean, the world is, ooh boy.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh boy. But we got a good episode for everybody today. We got some little news tidbits, not as much as the last time. Got a question, our very first question that we're going to talk about first, and our main topic, which is part 2 of the Resident Evil game, the original. But this time, we are covering the remake. We got a lot to talk about with that one. So first, we are going to start off our very first question segment from @JoeDwall. What game in the series is a guilty pleasure? A game that is loathed, yet you really enjoy. So, Paul, why don't you go first? Which one's yours?
Oh yeah, throw me under the bus first.
Yeah.
We're all going to get thrown under that bus, so don't worry about it.
Just warm us up a spot.
Yeah, thanks for that. I suppose, for myself, it would have to be Resident Evil 5.
Fair.
I mean, it's one of those games that got slated in production and on release. Hasn't aged that well, but I do quite like playing through it. I mean, it's still a mess now, but it's fun.
Yeah, Resident Evil 5. I was almost going for that for mine as well, just because, you know, it's.
Well, you can't.
Yeah. Well, the
two people can have the same vote. It's fine.
Yeah. The thing I was going to say is that the fandom has a lot of love for this game. Today, it's been interesting that over 10 years later now, this, for some people, this was their first one, Resident Evil 5. And yeah, it's one for us as the longtime fans that it was where we really saw the writings on the wall that the series, it was the one for me. I didn't buy on first day since the first one. It had been, I love the series for years.
I didn't. I actually bought the special edition.
Same here. I got the gold edition digitally, actually.
No, I mean, I actually got the proper special edition that came with an art book.
Oh wow! Okay, I see. Wow.
So it was, I loved it, and at the time, my cousin and I played through most of it, and it was just kind of fun to actually kind of play through it and get to the story, because it is that culmination of the arc that started in Resident Evil 1.
That's true.
It's the end of the Umbrella story, and it's not the best game, it does kind of tell that story better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely the better out of the Parasite trilogy. And folks, I will die on a hill for that comment.
I mean, from a pure gameplay perspective, I actually would probably prefer to play 5 than 6, but there's a huge chunk of that is big oof in that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was one that I enjoyed more until our buddy Rick and we played it on stream about 6-8 months ago, I think. And
was that the time you kept running into the laser beam?
Yes.
You guys had such a hard time.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
Just remember, Chris, fire hot.
Wait,
solar laser.
Hang on.
Too.
I have to get a piece of paper here. Okay, fire hot. Okay, got it.
But I think for another reason as well, like I've actually got a memory of my father watching me play one afternoon, and it's the part with the alligators.
Oh shit! Yeah.
So I got distracted. I got pulled down by the alligator. My father's just picked his head up at the same time. He goes, "I think you're dead."
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's a good one.
So, Chris, what's yours?
This one actually took some time to think about, because part of it is that I enjoy a lot of the Resident Evil games, both the ones that are good and the bad, and then the ones that I don't enjoy are the ones that people really like. Like I have a lot of issues with 4, 5, and 6 these days. And I wasn't going to be the psychopath that said, "Oh, Umbrella Corps is the guilty pleasure." Okay, I shouldn't be that cruel to anyone who actually does genuinely enjoy Umbrella Corps, because it's a good hate play. But
What? Who? Like all 5 people?
hopefully none who listen to this podcast.
Bye.
I decided today, actually, before recording this, to go back to Operation Raccoon City and see if that was the one for me. And that bored. I was literally like dozing off. That's why I don't know if Paul, if you were watching the stream of that for a bit, but that's why the gameplay started getting really lazy.
I was just wondering how you're getting from the streets to a graveyard to the Umbrella facility to a warehouse in like 10 minutes.
It's
Raccoon City.
Raccoon City, yeah. Now that's actually one of the things that felt correct by Resident Evil by the Resident Evil world logic, Yeah, the one that's a guilty pleasure for me is Resident Evil Survivor, actually. And it's part of that is because there's almost like an Asylum Films goofiness to it. And it's one where, because I wouldn't want to see Operation Raccoon City like remade and like remastered, and I'd like to play with better frame rate. No, that's a very fanficky kind of game, and I totally understand why there was, because I've known people that loved ORC. But for me, Survivor, what I liked about it, to get more attracted to what I do like about it, is I love its goofiness. I love the depth of like how horrifying the actual backstory is of Sheena Island and what's going on there. And I actually kind of like the music. I like the 3 different paths. I mean, we just did it for the Mystery Death Theater 5000 channel, and
Please follow us there.
Yeah.
Please watch that playthrough. It is a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. And though we got the whole gang for the last episode too, which is a blast. I think that's the one that's got the most hits too. But
yeah, I had to suffer all of that though with you, so
yeah,
that's definitely your guilty pleasure.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, it's and I think it's just I love the jokes about it as well, just as my last point, because I remember, Vanessa, you have that Ark Thompson voice you do for him. And I've been hearing you do that voice for like 20 years. And I the first time Paul got to hear it, busts up laughing. And it's like, oh, I'm not Vincent, I'm Ark.
It's me, Ark Thompson.
There you go.
It turns out I was the good guy all along, and my best friend is Leon S. Kennedy.
20 years later, they're no longer friends.
Right.
Leon's just constantly like, who are you again?
Yeah.
Ark's just spent 20 years pumping up, and he's just like, where's my money? Where's my money? Where's my money?
I spent it on flasks for myself.
Good plan.
Where's my money, honey?
Don't have it. Bye now.
Anyway, yeah, that's the Survivor, I think, is my guilty pleasure that is lambasted, but I genuinely enjoy.
Fair.
And we will lambast you for that.
I mean, I'm not really knocking anybody for their choices. You're all making, valid points. So it's fine. Don't worry about it.
What's yours, Vanessa?
It depends on whether I have my partner as my co-pilot or not. If I'm playing by myself, it's Orc. Just because of that, like, it kind of scratches that itch of like, I want to go to Raccoon City and just be in the streets for a while. And honestly, the DLC campaign with like the like default good guy characters are kind of interesting to me. It doesn't play particularly well, but there's like interesting bits there, and like unlocking all of the art for it was actually really cool to see. I liked what they I like what they put into it. Like, it feels like it was still built by people who really like the series, even if like it doesn't play particularly well.
Yeah, it kind of came out around that time when Resident Evil was at its lowest, wasn't it?
It was getting there.
I think.
Yeah, because
I think it was after 6, wasn't it?
It was after 6, because it's around. I want to say it was late 2012, because I remember it was because I remember the person that I worked with on a Resident Evil web series here in that was shot here in Portland. Don't bother looking that up, by the way, because that's actually been scrubbed from the internet, including the BTS that my father and I shot for that. But yeah, it was around then, and he was a big fan of it. And I remember of Operation Raccoon City. I remember, Vanessa, you hated the 1 or 2 episodes of that web series you saw, and I said, "Oh yeah,
I did.
And,
I did.
and I remember,
I'm sorry.
and I remember saying, "Oh yeah, no, that he's a big fan of RC, RC," and it was kind of like, "Oh, that shows."
I mean,
So I just looked it up there. ORC came out in March 2020. Not 2020, 2012.
Wow.
Resident Evil 6 came out in October 2012.
Huh.
I thought they came out the same year. That was, I just didn't remember which one came first.
Yeah.
It was
Chicken or the egg?
yeah. ORC was supposed to come out beforehand. I think it was supposed to be for Christmas, but it got delayed, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues with it, and it can be like really frustrating and clunky as fuck. But if I just want to like be in a sort of Raccoon City environment and deal with like goofy fanficky what if scenarios, it scratches that itch. I mean, granted, now with Remake 2 and 3, if I feel like going to Raccoon City, I'm going to default to that instead.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I mean, single player wise for me, that it's that. If I have my partner, it's RA6 just because it's not fun to play on my own. But when I play it with her, it is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely hilarious.
Plus, you can have company when you drink,
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
because you should never play that game sober.
I have.
Yeah, I have as
So
well.
I-
Yeah.
My God, almost every time I've played it, I've been sober. Oh
You have
no!
my sympathies.
Like, oh no. But like, she comes up with like a lot of really hilarious and fun headcanons. So like, it just kind of rolls into like really funny in jokes and like improv stuff that just sticks with us for the last several years. So that's why, like, if she's around, then it's going to be 6.
Yeah, I definitely am more inclined. I've played 6 and enjoyed it personally, but I do agree. I have to, totally understandable to play it with a friend, because I liked it. Actually, I liked it okay-ish when I played it the first time I'm solo. But then, yeah, again with Rick, he and I played that, started streaming that together. We went through the whole, all 4 campaigns.
Yeah.
And that's where like the whole Ancient Intern thing started coming out, then the Adventures of Shake and Jerry, and I did a little picture where it was it was a milkshake on Jake, and Jerry Gergich from Parks and Rec on Sherry.
Yeah, like my partner had originally talked about the agent working with Ada, who was just like really into her and just like did everything she asked him to and never said anything. And he's like, "I'll pick up your dry cleaning, Miss Ada."
Let me help you with that, Miss Ada, because I do remember some of the stuff, like, because I think you both were streaming it at that time, and I was watching it with you, and I do remember a lot of the Agent Intern stuff coming up.
He's a great running joke. I love him.
The only decent character in that game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like the characters. There's just not well, I mean, not all of them, but most of them.
Yeah, that's a discussion for another time.
I mean, I actually like Jake and Helena. I actually think that Helena should have been in Degeneration instead of Angela. I think it would have been a more interesting through line because they're kind of the same person.
Well, they are voiced by the same person.
Exactly. I just kind of wish that had happened, but it didn't. But like, I love Team Perfect hair. They both have beautiful hair.
It is majestic as fuck.
It is.
Yeah.
Team Perfect hair and Team Perfectly Stylized.
Yes. And like, Jake and Cherry are good together. I do think that for all of his campaign's, issues, I like that his actually involves character development and Jake growing as a person.
Mm-hmm. I enjoyed that.
You don't get in a lot of them.
Actually proving that he's nothing like his father.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Jake learned something.
Mm-hmm.
Halbert Wesker never learned anything in his life.
Right. I mean, Wesker didn't even learn enough to keep himself from getting, blown up and losing every single time he goes up against the Redfields. So.
Well, you see, Albert Wesker never learned fire bad.
Okay, I actually have one up on Albert Wesker. Okay, that's a shocking revelation.
Yeah,
Take that, Wesker.
you had to learn that lesson a few times, though, Chris.
But he never did. He never learned. Wesker never learned.
But Jake also proved he's not a complete and utter sociopath.
Yep. I appreciate that. So I believe that that should cover our question segment, which means we are rolling right along into the pretty slim news segment, since the last one was very chock full of stuff. All we have right now are just kind of some pictures got leaked from supposedly the set of the new Resident Evil reboot film. I'm not going to tell you exactly what are in them because we don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it. But it does look like the game.
Yeah, it's the art department is doing their job, so we'll see how things go from there. I always bring up the Silent Hill movie because the Silent Hill movie visual style is completely on point, but I have so many issues.
You gotta hurt me like this.
It's a good thing this is a Resident Evil podcast and not Silent Hill.
Yeah, and what I'll say, and by the way, just to clarify what I mean by Silent Hill, because it's when you groaned, Vanessa, I suddenly remembered the nurses and remembered, oh right, except that. But the environments were very well done, which is what we've seen so far. Is the environments more than like any of this?
Yeah.
So
also disappointing because Sean Bean lived in that one.
It's true. Yeah.
Utterly baffling.
Yeah.
God, what a fucking weird movie.
Yeah, but yeah,
it scares me.
Yeah, no, we'll another time.
Special one-off episode where you and I complain about the Silent Hill movie.
Yeah,
I'm taking that podcast off.
It's like Paul's on vacation, and it's just like an hour and a half of just going like, what the actual fuck?
And we're this like puddle of nerd goo at the bottom,
no.
Or rather, I'm just gonna be silently sitting off to the side, looking at you two like you've grown a third head.
But my point is that we're just like melting from just how bizarre it is, and and Paul comes back with a tan and a nice little sun hat and a bunch of kitschy souvenirs from his vacation.
Okay, Chris, I'm gonna stop you there. I'm Irish. I don't tan. I'm either pasty white or I burn like a lobster.
That's fair. Yeah. Actually, what it is, it's going to be like that Community scene where Paul just comes in and everything's on fire.
Oh God, yeah. I'm probably gonna have to edit most of this out anyway.
Well, you started.
There was also, I guess, a brief couple of clips from Resident Evil 8, RE Village.
It's like this promo they're doing for the PlayStation 5 where they're having celebrities play some games. So they had I think it was Naomi Osaka, the tennis player. They had her playing some PlayStation 5 games, and this is not it's not a gamer. And then further, what was interesting was that she clearly hates horror movies. She doesn't like being scared, and they have her playing Resident Evil 8. And so they have these little brief bits of gameplay while she's going through it.
Sorry, folks, that was just me head desking.
Ah, okay. You're right there. You need a little ointment for your bruising there. You good?
No, I think I'm gonna need a new table. I've dented it.
Oh crap!
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really a great choice.
No.
It's a weak advertising strategy, and it's not going to work in the long run.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. It's weird.
Tune back in when they actually give us any update on the game itself, other than like 2 seconds of Ethan walks down a street.
Right. And apparently he takes no fall damage. He takes no fall damage when he falls over.
Just because he doesn't have legs, he's just a pair of arms.
Again, my theory is Ethan Winter is secretly still infected.
True. But
no fall damage when you're a monster.
He does have legs. He's not just a pair of hands. If you look down, there are feet in Resident Evil 7.
He does have nice shoes in RE7.
They're not his legs. They're the legs he's stolen off someone.
What?
Man, we're going really deep down the rabbit hole this episode.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
So I
this
think-
has gone places.
So, like we said, there hasn't been a whole lot of news. In fact, it's barely even new.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably get the same footage from like any of the other trailers they've already really shown us.
Because they just keep showing the same one.
Oh boy. I mean, I know it's 2020. Shit's hard, but it's still not really grabbing me with like anything.
Yeah.
It's just not there, man.
I'm still waiting for somebody to show up in a tracksuit trying to sell me a VHS tape.
And denim. I want denim.
Be like really crappy Soviet denim.
Gotta be all in denim.
God. I'm just imagining
I just want to see that they're wearing something from like the last 100 years and they're not extras from a Universal film. That's all I'm asking.
I now that we're talking about denim, I just want to see a Romanian Rousdower.
I would honestly love if there was a character that was Romanian Rousdower in RE Village. That would be amazing.
I choose to fear what I was programmed to fear.
Mr. Winters, I wonder if there's beer on the sun.
Just basically from everything we've seen so far, I just keep thinking Robot Village from the Honkin' episode of Futurama.
Yes.
I really love that. I love that.
Yes. It's so accurate.
Oh man.
Oh, and that's it. That's the news segment. That's all of it.
Yep.
Congratulations. We've newsed.
We've newsed. We've nude because it's not
That
even.
just sounds rude.
It does. It does. Jesus, I'm gonna have to edit most of this episode, aren't I?
The punchiest episode of all time.
Okay. Anyway. So Vanessa, what are we doing again today?
Okay, today is the Resident Evil 1 remake that was released for the GameCube in 2002.
Yeah.
Old ass game now.
I know.
But you can all play it on the, well, I guess now the last gen consoles. You know.
Or on Steam.
On Steam, on PS4, on Xbox One, and on the Nintendo Switch. The HD remaster, I believe, came out in 2015?
I believe so. It's 2015 or 2014. It's around there. I looked this
Let me
information.
just point out as well, this game is now old enough to vote.
Yeah, let's just put it down to that. Let's just put it down to that. Yeah.
All this balls.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny coming back to this. I wanted to actually get this off right out the right out the gate is the anecdote when this was announced. Because I remember waking up and Remy, the webmaster at Biohazard Extreme, messaged me on ICQ. Was like, dude, you got to see this. You got to see this. And and the trailer had dropped, and I just remember the sense of awe when this was announced. And then as I'm thinking back on this, I realized how old I was at the time this remake was announced. And it was 19 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm 36 next month, and this game is half my age.
Oh, God. Yep.
I can actually feel the grey hairs forming faster now.
I'm aging 10 years with this knowledge as we speak.
I'm sorry, Vanessa, because
It's okay.
I'm going to be polite and say you're younger than me by a considerable margin.
I mean, I was born in March. I've been 36 most this year. Oh God.
There, Vanessa. There.
Anyway, back to what I was going to say, though. The other part of this anecdote about Remy telling me about the trailer was Remy loved to do these like new portions of his site because he was a Flash animator, and I remember he comes to me with the question of like wanting like a tagline for the like the intro for the website, and like he's going to animate this thing. And I don't know if it was me or him or if it was kind of both of us talking this out. I think it was like a collaborative thing, the way we phrased it. But the tagline for this remake as it was coming out for us was, you have to know where you've been to know where you're going. And it kind of is interesting. It's kind of interestingly prophetic about aesthetic and logic for where the franchise goes from this point. And that's why, anyway, to get things back on track, that's why I'm really excited to talk about this today.
That's actually really apt for the game itself, though, because the entire thing about Remake is how much it is meant to screw with people who knew the original inside and out.
But it's also interesting because it adds in so much that was supposed to be in the original game, but ended up being cut by time constraints.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like Lisa Trevor, who was supposed to be a major character in the original game, but was cut right before release, I think, because they just couldn't get her completed.
I always thought it was just the George Trevor, like, side story that was the thing that was supposed to be in there.
Right, that's what I always heard. I didn't hear that because I had heard that Lisa Trevor. Anyway, I don't know, but it's.
Yeah, I kind of see it as being like you can't have one without the other. I mean, you could have George Trevor, but without Lisa, it's just a guy whose name is in a book. There's no emotional connection. Whereas with Lisa, well, we'll talk about this later on, there is more of an impact.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's true.
Yeah. So I guess, like, I'm trying to figure out, like, where's a good place to start with this remake about discussing it. Like, do we want to just jump into discussing, like, our analysis of it or our own personal experiences with it, our personal thoughts on it?
I think just compare and contrast what was in the games.
Yeah, I mean, there's also, you got, like, game development stuff that you wanted to talk, and maybe that would be good to jump in with first.
Okay. So the interesting thing about the context of when this was coming out, because I'm fascinated by the history of these game development companies, especially compared to today. From 2002 from the year 2000 to 2002, this is like the leap from PlayStation, Sega Saturn, N64, 32-bit to PlayStation 2, GameCube, and Xbox. Capcom was making a lot of different games at this time. The Resident Evil remake, Devil May Cry, Onimusha, and Maximo were basically being worked on all at the same time throughout different parts of the company. And that's just one, like, major division. Now, obviously there was probably some overlap, and it's like Onimusha wraps early 2001, or I think it was late. Yeah, because it was 2001, right? Because I remember that was in it was January, February, or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
What was interesting was they had made this decision to port all of the Resident Evil games to the GameCube because Mikami wanted to throw his weight behind the GameCube. He was frustrated with the PlayStation, and it broke down a lot. A lot of the early units, were very faulty, and so they decided to remake the original Resident Evil because it hadn't aged as well as 2, 3, and Code Veronica. And that's kind of like our sort of basic history of how things kind of get started. The interesting thing is that many of the folks who worked on the original Resident Evil, who had also been around for Resident Evil 3, had kind of gotten separated to different teams. And although Shinji Mikami comes in to oversee it and direct it, basically, which I think might have been the first game he had directed since the original Dino Crisis, but that they kind of expand the team, and actually get this kind of new crew, and some of which, leads to, like, the more cinematic elements. So they hire Shimako Sato and the quote unquote cinematographer, Hide Gondo. Those were the two guys who worked on the cutscenes for Code Veronica, and they get brought in to do the cutscenes for the Resident Evil remake, which then elevates, those qualities of, the cinematic element. And I guess every interview I see that talks about the cutscenes credits the cinematographer for being very bold with the changing of camera angles, using different types of lenses, so like, it's like there's more close-ups, there's wide shots, things like that, using like the way that they did a lot more Dutch angles and things like that.
I was going to say, on my last replay, I really did notice the use of the Dutch angles, and they were really well done.
Mm-hmm. So there's the kind of creative push. There's also the addition of art director Naoki Katakai, who had worked as an object designer for the original game and comes back. He had also been a background artist on Resident Evil 3. But that, so that kind of pushes the tech forward, which then leads to, the struggles on the GameCube. And I guess they had to even ask for engineers at Nintendo to kind of help them out and figure out, like, okay, how do we use this new architecture, to push what we want? But yeah, so that's interesting. So when we come to the comparison, this is sorry this took a while, but the point though is that it turns out that by around November of 2001, with the goal to be that this game is going to ship sometime in March, they've realized, okay, we've basically remade the first game beat for beat. We haven't really changed anything. And then Mikami decides, let's change this up. And that's where suddenly the scenario gets changed, things get added, things get, shifted around, puzzles are remixed and sometimes redone from scratch. And I guess that kind of segues into, the comparison of how did things change? Because...
oh boy, did they.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy, did it.
So many changes.
I mean, right off the bat, you have the hallway from where Kenneth is found dead.
Mm.
And that leads to a completely different area.
Mm-hmm.
And leads to, the arrowhead, which is also another whole thing that was definitely not in the original. I mean, the Spencer estate went from having no genuine graveyards to 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of graveyard.
It's interesting that they're there in such a dilapidated state, which implies that they were there during the early days of their experimentation. Because lore-wise, our understanding is that the place was built in the 60s, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
yeah. 67, 68, I believe.
Just about the dilapidation, I grew up near a graveyard, and I can tell you, unless a graveyard is meticulously maintained, it's going to look bad very quickly. And especially because that's a mountain area of the forest and presumably a lot of rainfall. Moss can make things look a lot worse than they actually are. So, and I'm trying to remember, there was a lot of wooden headstones, weren't there?
Were there?
There's a couple. There's a couple in the one behind the mansion, but the one that's out in the one that's out in the forest is all stone.
Yeah, well, the one out in the forest makes even less sense because it's got the crest puzzle that's reveals a perfectly fit in magnum. I'm like, what? Who did this?
Somebody who's watched a few Italian movies.
Yeah. Oh, that I was actually just remembering that today. That is straight out of fucking Burial Ground, isn't it? The Andrea Bianchi one. Have you guys seen that one?
Mm-mm.
Is there an English actor in that?
That's that weird, the guy who looks like a kid, but he was actually in his 30s, the Peter something or Paul something.
Tom Holland.
I don't think Tom Holland was even born at that stage.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Yeah. Oh no, Burial Ground is a kick. I should show that movie to you guys. It's a great zombie movie. I mean, it's fucking weird, but it's good. But yeah, no, there's okay. Hopefully listeners understand what I'm referencing.
It just really changes things up, and some of the changes don't really still work for me.
Yeah.
When I start thinking about them puzzle wise. I love the game, but then I stop and try to dig into the whole thing with the gallery puzzle, and in the original it being about Spencer's whole immortality thing and the aging of a human being.
The 7 ages of man.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Now it's a stained glass puzzle depicting Lisa, and I can't think of a way that makes sense to build if you're George Trevor or if you're Spencer.
Yeah.
I think it was more Spencer because that image of Lisa, is that her as a girl or as the monster?
Well, it's a girl, as a kind
woman.
of a woman,
a lady.
Yeah, lady, probably
So,
late teens, early 20s.
I could see Spencer having that installed as behold the Mary to my great future.
But it's not phrased that way at all.
Right, that's the catch.
No, it's just it's Spencer. He's creepy ass.
Yeah, it's
no.
Yeah.
I'm still nope, not buying it. Nope.
I'm going to be the one that's in between, just because I agree with Vanessa that it needs to be phrased better to make that clearer. But at the same time, I can see it from the perspective that, yeah, there's this strange sense of immortalization. And the stained glass puzzle looks rather newer made. It's probably in the last 20 years, which would be roughly in the 70s. God damn it, I just remembered I forgot to reread Wesker's report before doing this.
I fucking love Birkin and Wesker working there, and like Birkin's work just takes a nosedive when he gets jealous of actual 10-year-old Alexia Ashford.
Mm-hmm.
And we will be covering that in any discussion we have about William Birkin.
Probably RE0. I mean, that would probably work.
And we'll get to Code Veronica eventually, and the
Albert should be mean to me again.
Yeah, I mean, the Birkin thing would definitely work in Zero, because...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, god damn.
Birkin Hardy Birkin.
Oh.
But, like, I mean, yeah, they were kind of, they were working there, and my partner had the theory that, like, everything in the lab kind of just went downhill when Sherry was born, because William and Annette kept having to play hot and potato with their child.
Oh, God.
Look, I looked after her last month. It's your turn now.
Yeah, so it's like the security systems start like not being maintained. Nobody's lighting the candles. Cobwebs start showing up because it's just like, well, we can't dedicate any resources to upkeep. Both of our head researchers are too busy with their child.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are they head researchers or are they maintenance workers?
Well, I mean, it seemed like they still had to like direct things. I mean,
yeah, they have to tell people what to do. They have to get a work log up, and it's like, all right, somebody so and so needs to turn on the dehumidifier in the B3 lab so that we don't get a bunch of moisture in the giant fan area.
Yeah, I mean, Wesker said that like morale and all of the work took a nosedive when Birkin got like obsessed with his rivalry.
That's pretty awesome.
And that it also like it made Birkin's work also take a nosedive, which actually it still works in the context of talking about the remake, because there is an actual file from William Birkin in it.
Yes, I was actually
where he mentions, "I can't wait to see the look on fucking Alexia's face."
I was about to mention that. Yep.
And Albert's just kind of like, why are we still friends? I'm a sociopath. I shouldn't have friends.
In your face, 10-year-old child. And I'm like, Birkin, by the time you wrote this, she had been in cryostasis for like a decade.
Right.
And you think she's been dead for a decade. Really, William?
Right.
Really?
Yeah. Let's forget about the fact that she was in cryostasis. Birkin had a rivalry with a dead 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It's so ridiculous.
It kind of sums up everything we need to know about Umbrella.
Yeah, it does.
And so they're basically they're petty Twitter people, basically.
Yeah.
Actually, no. They're bitter 2013 Tumblr people. That's what they are.
I mean, I guess it makes let's have our security system be 4 death masks and a experiment that we lock up in a suspended coffin in our torture boiler.
Right. Okay, we actually talked about this the other day, Vanessa, when we were prepared for this episode. I actually think the security systems we go through in the remake and the original game, they're not the real security system. That's just the one for dealing with intruders like industrial spies or journalists. There's probably just like a master key that every Umbrella researcher has.
And I still think it's too far, because even to like that death mask thing involves the 4 death masks, which is a new thing that is added into the remake. Like all this stuff is like a new puzzle, and kind of it takes the place of the crests,
right?
Like and they're still there, but they are demoted to getting you a weapon, more or less. So now it's all death masks. But each death mask is kind of involved in like a multi-tiered exploration through the mansion. So like you don't just really stumble on any of them. You have to go through the Lisa stained glass puzzle. You have to go through the night suits of armor stuff. You have to go to the attic, which is behind at least 2 separate locked doors. And the door that leads into the attic is still with a key that has to be unlocked via its own puzzle. So there's like 5 layers deep at that point.
But I think that's why it's perfect as a security measure, because if you think about it, you go through all this shit and you get the masks, and it's just like, okay, how many more do I have to get? 1 more. Okay, whatever this is, it's going to be worth it for the amount of effort I've done. And then when you set the masks, you go into that chamber, the door locks behind you, and pop, super zombie.
Right. Super zombie.
I think under most circumstances, the second anyone put one of the masks in and saw one of the chains drop and a bunch of blood falling out, they would go, no.
Right.
I've come too far.
Yeah, it's a
lot. Yeah, but like a good 50-50 shot, someone would go, no.
No. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it's Raccoon City. There's not a lot of common sense there.
Right. And this also comes back to one of the interesting changes for the remake and how it really showcases the shift of Mikami as a developer, getting this chance to be more of a kind of I keep saying he's almost more like an auteur filmmaker in respects, because he has this, the way that a filmmaker will sometimes get all crazy with abstract visualization. Like I think of like Nicholas Winding Refn's Neon Demon, where like there's a music video type scene like 2/3 into the movie that makes no fucking sense from a logic perspective, but it's entirely about the language of the art form. And that's why, to me, I love that scene. I love that movie. But with a video game, especially one that ostensibly is meant to have an internal sense of logic and try to tell a story, Mikami has this strange, like, almost like this continual distancing that starts, I feel, with the remake. It gets worse in Resident Evil 4, and then Evil Within 1 is where we kind of see it reach its kind of ultimate conclusion. Because the idea, I think, that they are trying to go for from the perspective of the developers is to make you feel uncomfortable as the player that you're doing these things. But of course, to us as the players that, as all three of us are writers, we look at this from a character logic perspective and going, there's no fucking way that any of these people would do this. At the very least, they would do it in a way that's much more tactical and prepared and less dangerous.
I mean, I cut it a lot of slack because I'm like, oh yeah, Raccoon City, Spencer Estate, really goofy stuff. Which is why, like, I'm not gonna pick apart like everything, but it just kind of, it would go like a couple steps too far for me to like suspend my disbelief in this like goofiness. I'm just like, oh no though.
Mm-hmm.
No. I don't know, you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, it's not as bad for me as like Lisa's lair, or behind the waterfall.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That candle is like the bane of my goddamn existence.
Hey, future me, can you put up a picture of that on the YouTube version of this? Thank you.
There is a candle behind the waterfall that you finally get to go past after you've changed the flow and everything, and there's the ladder leading down to the underground. And the walls are dripping wet. There is active water just coming down, and the whole thing is lit by this one small candle. And I'm like, that is a terrible idea. And who did this? Who is constantly lighting these candles? And then I walk down the ladder, and then there's electric light bulbs just right there. And I'm like, well, you had one right there. Why didn't you just use that? It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they gave Lisa a job.
I'm sorry, but Lisa's probably too busy making a perfect circle with candles and lighting each and every one with her chained arms.
God.
I'm sorry. I really do love this game. It's just like that just like, I'm like, what? Really?
Yeah.
We love this game. It's just, but we love it so much. We can see the flaws in it and just kind of go, we have to make jokes.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing tops that sign for the puzzle to get into the second graveyard.
Oh my god. Oh god. Yeah, we were talking about that the other day.
Nothing tops that. And this is another thing that is completely new to the remake. You get out of the mansion proper and you're heading through like the shack.
Mm-hmm. You're heading towards the shack, yeah, or the little like garden
garage.
It's the
garden shack. Yeah. Shed. That's it. Garden shed.
Yes.
It's the big old garden shed that leans to like the garden and then the guardhouse. But before that, they added in a new pathway off of the shed, which leads down this hill to the second graveyard. Mm-hmm. The second graveyard of the Spencer Estate. And there's a puzzle to get in because it's guarded by statues because it's Spencer Estate. And the sign has like these 4 different directions that's meant to correspond with, north, south, east, and west. But the names are just bonkers. bonkers silliness, like the Valley of Destruction, but it's misspelled on the sign, so it says Valley of Destruction, and the Cave of Hatred, and the Summit of Madness.
I want to believe, although I don't think the film was commercially available worldwide yet, that they had watched The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra, and this was their little wink nudge about it. I somehow doubt that, though.
If it were true, I would respect that. Because every time my partner goes, yes, it's next to the Cathedral of Lost Hope.
I sleep now.
Oh, yes. God. Yeah.
Like that is the absolute, like, goofiest, silliest thing in that game. And it doesn't fit.
It kind of does.
Not to me at all. I'm like, no. See, no, get out. Get outside.
What's a bummer about this is these kind of additions is and there's all these different things we're discussing, the candlelight, the weird logic about this, the alternate doors, things like this. Because of the fact that so many of these changes were done at a very different time in game development history, they were done very quickly, roughly around 2.5 to maybe at most like 4 months, right? You figure they had to have at least a month to go from gold to shipping the game. So that means that they have to,
It feels like something they handed off to the interns. Like, we're busy with this. You get to do these very small areas. Don't fuck it up.
And kind of, that seems like that was kind of in the direction it sort of went. And the reason I say this is because the team was pretty small. Like, it actually is pretty tight. When you see a long credits list, that's more the production crew for like directing and executing like the cutscenes. But when it came to the internal development, like production heads, it's a pretty small, tight team. More of what it sounds like what happened is Shinji kind of goes to the team and says, I want to add new stuff. You guys come to me with ideas. And he just kind of is able to choose from that. But there's no one like figuring out how these logically work. Because imagine if you have a new file that's like another like Keeper's Diary type thing that is about the guy who wrote that stupid goddamn sign. And what it is he's just like this, he's just a nerd. He's a doofy, funny nerd. He loves horror movies and comic books. He's always reading Tales from the Crypt. And that becomes this tragic thing is that he, died. And one of the other, like, I don't know, Martin Crackhorn or somebody put up that sign as like a weird way of like honoring the guy because he died in one of the experiments.
Oh.
Like that then adds this context, which makes it interesting. The stuff about Lisa lighting all the candles and things like that. And what is she doing around the mansion and all that kind of stuff? What if what if for a long time there was somebody on the grounds that was taking care of her after she gets loose, not realizing how dangerous she is, and she ends up killing him in one of her rages, or the parasite does something or infects him. These elements could work. They could be. They can. They're just, with what's in the game, there's not enough to make it work. That's my point.
Because like I really thought that what they had was they genuinely thought Lisa was dead at that point. That they had killed her and disposed of her body, and they wrote her off entirely. But for some reason, they did not think about the fact that her chief function is to not fucking die.
Right.
So she woke up and went back to just, being stuck on the grounds because she couldn't figure out a way to leave.
It feels very much like Frankenstein's monster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They just wrote her off instead of her getting revenge and just kind of killing everyone dear to her creators. It's just, well, she's gonna wander around, light candles, collect flowers, rip the skins off people's faces.
I still don't know how she's lighting candles.
Awkwardly.
Incredibly awkwardly. Good Lord.
I'm just imagining her with like one of those like one of those suburban like little candle lighter things that's kind of those long things, and like it's like, how does she?
Oh yeah.
But it's like, then how does she even get her thumbs in shackles around the safety lock on those things?
Badly.
Awkwardly.
But I mean, I guess for like game flow stuff, we could at least dovetail that into talking about the Crimson Heads, because as much as like the puzzles did change the general flow of how you were going to go through the mansion, the Crimson Heads also from moment to moment change strategy on how you even want to deal with most of the threats in the mansion.
And they're an interesting bridge between zombies and the Lickers, who are arguably now one of the series' most recognizable monsters.
They are. Yeah, definitely.
Yep. Which is no, never mind. I'm gonna save the comment for another episode. But
Oh boy.
Controversial.
the so yeah, because that's the V-Act reaction, right? Because there's the file about that. I'm gonna make sure to double check that.
Yeah, and that they are not like, for a while everybody kind of just thought, oh, okay, so Crimson Heads are the in-between point between zombie and liquor, and it's like, no, they're still distinct. It's just that like liquors became like the offshoot of that.
Yeah, because it's the epsilon strain of the T virus creates Crimson Heads, and the first Crimson Head is the one you fight with the death masks.
Right, the one in the coffin.
Beardo.
Yeah. So
Jesus Christ.
So the original story there is that one of the technicians gets infected with the epsilon strain and turns into a Crimson Head. Now, Umbrella had not been doing any experimentations with that strain on humans or with the T-virus in general. But what they find with this guy is incredibly interesting. They only put him into that coffin when he kills 4 assistants in a feeding incident that went terribly wrong.
That incident cracks me up. I'm like, did you guys try throwing the meat at him?
Yeah. No, it's so I didn't think I thought he was civilized. He wouldn't bite the hand that feeds him.
I came up to him with a plate. I didn't think he would take off my face.
I keep thinking of have you ever seen that film Attack of the Sabertooths?
I have not, but I need to now that I know that that's a title of a movie.
No, there might actually be another film with another Sabertooth. It's got the guy who played Gimli.
Oh, John Rhys Davies?
John
Rhys Davies. Yeah. And at the start of the film, there's a technician who's just kind of finished some work, and he opens this door for a janitor to go in, forgetting that there's a saber-toothed tiger sleeping in that same chamber. So the janitor gets killed. The technician looks in and goes, oh, something's happened here, and gets killed.
Oh my God.
So I keep thinking that's what happened. It was like, oh, Dave's dead. What happened here? Oh my God, no. Oh, Dave and Michael are dead. What happened here? Oh, God, no.
Where'd Marco go?
Oh God. Well, oh God, there's 2 horror movies two horror things that reminds me of. Actually, no, sorry. It reminds me of a horror thing, but I'm going to mention the more comical one that I can actually reference. Is Parappa the Rapper 2 has a little piece where there's this button that's shrinking people that's tied to a remote control. So this character is trying to change the channel of the remote, and all of these random people keep popping in and out of the street in the main door, and she keeps shrinking them. I'm just amazed. I can't imagine that they would be so they're Philip J. Fry levels of stupid to just like get the meat in their hands and stick it out, and it's like, haha, he's licking my fingers, and then they pull back the hand and it's gone.
It's like, oh.
Yeah. But on a slightly more realistic note, I'd say what probably happened was one technician went in, kind of just shark mail, whatever. They weren't careful. They got killed. The zombie got out, killed 3 others.
Probably. Yeah.
Most likely scenario.
Yeah. But upon seeing what the Crimson Head could do, Umbrella ramped up their research into the Epsilon strain, and it's actually the modified version which creates liquors.
Okay, so that's okay. If that is the canon, that actually finally, I feel this sigh of relief, because the liquor thing has been bugging me for decades.
Yeah, no, that's basically it.
Oh, thank God. I wish I had known that sooner. The one thing I wanted to comment about the Crimson Heads before we get too far off the deep things. One thing is about the gameplay thing is I love how it makes you, as we're saying, you have to, when you know it going in on your second or third playthrough, you really get to plan out what zombies you kill and which ones you don't. When you use the shotgun rounds, how to use the fire to dispose of the body. Secondly...
Yeah, we should probably point out to people who've never actually played the remake, certain zombies could come back. Even if you destroy their heads, you actually have to burn their corpses to permanently end them.
I believe blowing off the heads is a permadeath as well. It's
yeah.
I'm
far
not
as I
too
know, it
sure.
is.
I think because they could regenerate faster.
Let me check, because actually they have it in the file. Body disposal. Here we go.
Because every time I got rid of any of their heads, those guys never came back.
Yeah. Currently, there are 2 known methods to cease their resurrection. 1 is incineration, and 2 is destruction of the head. Special instructions when disposing of bodies. Yeah. So that is the body disposal file that is found in the East Wing storeroom, Mansion 1F.
It's where you get the canteen for the first time, I believe.
Yep.
Oh, a zombie can be prevented from turning into a Crimson Head by either destroying the head or its kneecaps.
Oh, which is probably because they didn't want to animate the Crimson Heads crawling around. Yeah,
That would make sense.
that would make sense. I love visually the Crimson Heads. I love the retextured skin is fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
I love that the claws are like out of Lamberto Bava's Demons, which is one of my absolute favorite horror movies. So that's another.
I love the fact that their eyes completely white over.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
And they almost have like steam coming out of their mouths when they like exhale, which is neat.
I think it's because they're actually alive again. Mm-hmm. Because they get their name from the fact that there's blood still circulating around their bodies. So the heart must still be active.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the horrifying thing that they like really have been trying to drive home about the T-virus infected people, zombies recently, is that like, no, they're not really undead. They didn't die. They can't control themselves at all.
Right.
But if their hearts are pumping as well, it also explains why you can actually see their breath when they exhale, because their blood pumping that fast must be raising their body temperature up to extraordinary levels.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Another zombie movie reference to make there is I do wonder if the Crimson Heads in 2002 inspired the, I think it was 2012 or 2013 zombie movie Wormwood, where the zombies, well, the zombies in that actually produce a type of fuel. It's kind of a weird sci-fi cosmic twist in that film, but
It's also an Australian film, which explains so much.
that movie's
Wild.
It's really fucking
I'm
good,
sorry
though.
to any Australians out there.
But yeah, offenses to Australia aside, Wormwood is really good, and people should go watch that movie if they like zombies. Anyway,
But,
yeah, go ahead, continue.
before we actually move away from the creatures, can we just talk about how a lot of the creatures they created at that facility were actually useless?
Yeah,
That's true. I did have one more thing to say about
Of
like
course.
gameplay wise about like the Crimson Heads and how that like remake tries to make you at least until you get through the mansion into the guardhouse, really makes you try to double think about like, do I kill anybody around here? Do I even do that? And then the remake of 2 takes the opposite track to screw with you. So people who played the remake was like, yeah, you avoid taking out zombies because, you don't want to have to deal with anything that might happen. But you have to in 2 to clear out areas where Mr. X is going to be chasing you. And it's like this, I think like just gameplay wise, it's really neat how they want you to go from one end to the other.
Because
I didn't
you're
think of that.
always on your toes then. That's what a game should do.
Yeah.
If you play the 3 games, like the 3 remakes, 1, 2, and 3 back to back, you're going into 2 thinking these zombies could come back. They're essentially fresher. They could be infected with what makes Crimson Heads. And you don't get that. And that really screws you up. And then you go into 3, and you're kind of thinking, okay, well, I'm probably not going to run into anything. And at that point, when you're thinking that, that's when you meet the parasite zombies.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really interesting through line, honestly, gameplay wise. I think that's really fascinating.
It's actually
I mean,
impressive.
I like lighting them up too.
yeah.
In remake, I'm like, strategy.
You guys know my approach to post first play throughs, right? Rocket launchers all the time.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
But interestingly, when I was replaying it recently with the rocket launcher, no, you still gotta light them on fire.
Makes sense. But at the same time, you're also clearing zombies who aren't going to come after you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of bodies that they specifically put in the mansion to encourage you to remember that you have to deal with Crimson Heads. There is one near like the storeroom on the west side.
Yeah, west side. West wing, first floor.
The west wing. Yeah, there's that one there. And if you don't deal with them, they are going to come back. 100%. I mean, and then there's the other one. I think there's another one.
Yeah, there's
definitely more than one.
Oh god, because I know there's the
one
one
in both wings, isn't there?
Say again?
There's one in both wings.
Yeah, I think you're correct. I think that's
there's the east wing guy too. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's right. I was also going to add, on my last playthrough, I was reminded that the other thing about the Crimson Heads is that as a factor goes beyond the mansion. You can get Crimson Heads if you're not careful and you don't burn the bodies or blow off the heads in the guardhouse and especially in the lab.
That is true. Yeah.
Which is cool. I think there's more tactics involved in the mansion segment because you're kind of less armed up. You don't have as much firepower, so it's a little more trivial later on. But you can, if like say for instance you've gotten roughed up by the chimeras and you're trying to double back to go check on Chris or to use one of the Mo discs or there's something you forgot before you go off to Tyrant. And your health is low. Oh, say for instance, you're going back up to B2 and you're trying to get the herbs that are outside of the room with the projection room, the conference room, and you haven't popped one of those two guys that you killed earlier, and bada bing, you got Crimson Heads. So it happens.
Yeah, and you have to really worry about that when you're doing the segment that involves taking the canister over to the power room.
Yes.
Oh yes, the canister of nitroglycerin.
Okay, I'm gonna say it. That segment, not my favorite.
No
bullshit.
No, not a good addition.
It's a bullshit segment. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, like I mean, anybody can argue all they want about like the aesthetics and like the puzzle changes, but that thing, I don't think anybody likes that one.
Yeah, that's a hard one to argue for in favor of. Partly because I understand it's trying to remix gameplay, and given my feelings on Doom Eternal this year, I like when gameplay is remixed at towards the end, but not like this. Not like this.
Not like this.
That kind of gameplay element though is right up there with escort missions for worst fucking idea ever in a game.
Or the tailing somebody in Grand Theft Auto where you have to be at the exact right sweet spot.
Hate those. Put it in the bin where it belongs. Just put it right in the trash. Just bad. It just like it extends gameplay by like a couple minutes, and I'm like, I'm not scared now. I'm just tired.
Yep.
Can you just put it in now? Just put the canister in.
It extends gameplay, but it doesn't actually increase any part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't increase enjoyment.
It doesn't add anything to it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's probably my least favorite part.
Yeah. So Paul, you were saying about the creatures that most of the ones that they created at the lab were how was it you put it again?
Useless. Because if you actually look at some of them, and you kind of think, hang on, there's no feasible way to use these. Like, let's forget the zombie dogs and the zombies themselves, because they're accidental, they're incidental to the virus. Take something like Neptune. Yes, on the one hand, you've got a giant zombie shark. How are you going to use it?
Because short of it being big and strong enough to take down a battleship, which is a case of like, just use a bomb, It's a case of
more than that.
Just load a shark into a cannon. You're done.
More than that, though, Chris. Can it actually swim in salt and seawater? Because there's not a lot of sharks that can do that. Mm-hmm. That is a great white. Mm-hmm. That can only swim in seawater.
I mean, it also came to my mind that was like, well, I mean, sharks are already pretty capable of fighting and
things.
killing. And so what exactly does giving it the T virus do to it?
It makes it kill things and fight things.
It's kind of a lateral move for that shark, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, I've tried to bring up this point in other discussions as well. Tyrants are actually useless considering the amount of money you put into them and how much use you actually get out of them.
Yeah, they are kind of.
Because kind of researching this episode, I found out that tyrants are actually made from people who have a genetic code that's found in about 1 in 10 million people.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's a very rare thing. And then later on, they kind of like retcon some of it to being that like they got to make more tyrants once they were able to use the DNA from Sergei Vladimir.
Yeah, they just started cloning him. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Most tyrants you fight post Raccoon City are clones of Sergei, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd still, Sergei is one of those things that I wish didn't exist in the canon. There's so many problems for me with it.
you just like look at him and then just kind of turn away and go, no.
I mean, I was watching Umbrella Chronicles videos for prepping for the Richard and Rebecca stuff here, and I got to the moment where they see him carrying a carcass away out the front of the mansion. Look, I love anime bullshit, but that's not the kind of anime bullshit I want in Resident Evil, okay?
He's just so weird. Such a weird guy.
Yeah, but I think like at the end of the day, the only really success Umbrella had were the hunters.
I mean,
I've really come around to agreeing with that for sure.
Because no matter how you look at it, you can get a lot more hunters for your money than you can for a tyrant. And yes, hunters might be easier to take down. You're not losing that much cash if you're like a terrorist strapped for money.
a hunter will give you the most bang for your buck, and it's still difficult to take down.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of
the way you could actually, sorry there, Chris, but the way you could actually describe it is you're given an RPG or you're given a tank.
Oh boy. Yeah.
You spend $1 million on the tank or 10 grand on the rocket launcher.
Mm-hmm.
Leon Kennedy sweats and wonders which one to pick.
But I mean, like, if you think about it, then like you could maybe get 100 rocket launchers or 1 tank.
Right. Which the tank might be able to help you like hold one stretch of road, whereas that 100 rocket launchers will help you take a whole city.
The 100 rocket launchers will take out 100 tanks.
I want 100 rocket launchers.
Depends on the make
It's
of
not
tank.
Resident Evil 5 though.
Yeah, Resident Evil 5 rocket launcher. Okay, good point. Okay, okay. If we're talking Resident Evil logic, yes. Okay, yeah. I was going to comment about the hunters. There was something that I don't know if I remember ever encountering this, but Mikami revealed this and talked about this in one of the interviews that apparently. So there's the defensive items, which we haven't discussed yet, but when you stab the knife into the hunter's head, it keeps clawing and moving. Mm-hmm. He revealed, and so I get the feeling, Vanessa, you're familiar with this. If you get too close when it's in that state, it can decapitate you and kill you instantly, apparently.
I did not get the decapitation, but I did get it lash out and hit me.
Yeah, so you at least can get hurt. So I take that back. Actually, I'll have to probably look up that quote again. God damn it, I don't know.
So by the way, absolutely fuck hunters. Fuck those guys. I hate them. Like,
but I love them so much.
Great monster, but also fuck those guys.
So while Chris is looking at that, will we discuss what defensive weapons are?
Yeah, they each, both Chris and Jill get different defensive items, which was not a thing in the original, and does get brought back in formats for remake too, but it's still different here because they do not take up item slots, so you can stack as many of them as you want. Both of them get access to the knife, and then each one gets their own specialized defensive item. Chris gets flash grenades that he can just like jam in the mouths of the enemies and their heads tend to explode, or Jill gets a stun gun.
It's one of those rare instances where Chris kind of wins out in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
He sure does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know entirely what to think of that myself.
It's a weird choice. Like, I like the flash grenades quite a fair bit, but I mean, whenever I'm playing as Jill, and I probably default to playing as Jill when I play the remake more often than not, I almost never use the stun guns because it's a weird thing. It's a weird choice.
I think they added the stun gun in because, like, early 2000s, it's a lot of time, like, where they're trying to advertise their usage to women. You know, hey, be safe, carry a stun gun.
Yeah. I just don't think they're going to be very effective against those monsters. I mean,
Yeah.
mechanically they are because they make them so. But like, I when I'm like trying to think about it, I'm like, I don't know. I like the flash grenade better because I get why. Like, that's an automatic kill.
It's a grenade. It explodes in their mouth.
Yeah, the stun is not.
All you've
It is
done
not
is just
automatic.
you've tickled a zombie. Like you don't have to worry about its heart stopping or anything like that.
Stop, that tickles. I mean, that said, the differences between like Chris and Jill, it's still the same, but like when I was replaying as Chris, I just like at one point I was just like, oh damn you, Redfield, get some fucking pockets.
I still can't believe that vest clearly has pockets. Pockets he's not using.
I mean, it's also the opposite of real life where men always have more pockets than women because women's clothing is not built with pockets.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 5 pockets on me right now.
Oh, how dare you.
I have probably about the same, maybe a little more, because I have my cargo pants on today.
I have 0 pockets on me right now.
I'll give you my back pocket.
Yeah, I got a side. I have a side pocket I can spare. Yeah.
I guess. I guess.
Folks, if you want to send Vanessa some pockets, we'll start a GoFundMe for that soon.
GoFundMe pockets.
Just the phrasing of that just sounds. Well, welcome back to our GoFundMe Pockets charity stream here on Twitch. Make sure we're just up to our $1,500 goal, and we're gonna be hoping to smash those numbers. Everybody, click subscribe and get the link on out there.
I can't believe we're 5 minutes into the stream.
Everyone loves pockets.
Anyway, back to the defensive weapon thing. So yeah, I don't know if this is just a misprint or if it's from an interview before the game was finished and balanced out. But Mikami
Yes, it is.
Mikami says, by the way, when characters use the defense knife to a hunter, if the hunter struggles and you make the character step forward to the hunter in this moment, you'll die! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. So.
Well, yeah, you just stabbed it in the head.
I mean, I stabbed one as Chris, and I was trying to get away from it because it is the singular hunter that kills me more often than any of the other ones. The one in the underground passage.
Oh, that motherfucker.
Yeah, the one that like it's when you're coming back from a meeting with Enrico.
Yeah. Is that
you're heading up.
Right. Yeah. I was just thinking. Yeah. Okay, that one. Oh,
he's the one.
Yeah.
He is the one who has destroyed at least 2 of my no save runs. Because
Jesus.
if you do not cross the distance fast enough and you think, "Oh, I'll just stop to hit him." No, he will automatically do the decapitation move almost like immediately. And the last time I was like, "Oh, I'm not, messing with you, asshole." So I rushed him and he still tackled me. So I stabbed him and I'm like, well, it's better than a decapitation. And then like, while I'm trying to aim, he just lashes out and just like slices me. And I'm like, wow, I really hate you. And then I killed him.
Do you know it's actually impossible to shoot a hunter when it's in midair?
Which is different from the original. I don't know about the remake.
Yeah.
It is not that way in the original because I have shot them out of the air in the original.
Yeah.
But I've never done it in the remake.
There's something about their animation. They're impossible to shoot down when they're launching for a strike. The only person who actually does it is Barry, and that's in a cutscene.
That entirely explains why I have trouble with that guy, because he will almost automatically go into the jump move the second he triggers.
You triggered me!
he has very little time. Like, you just have almost no time to deal with him. And the only way to, like, stop him from doing that move is it by, like, rushing him.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, fuck that one hunter in particular.
Indeed.
Hunters, nature's asshole.
I do miss the chimeras, though. I mean, they're fucked up as hell.
Oh yeah,
I say this every time we bring them up, but
Yep. Okay. Yeah. If we're gonna talk about the chimeras, just I have to say,
we have to this.
They are. I totally agree about missing them, because when I was going through this last time, I was reminded the crunch when you blast them with a shotgun is so satisfying. It is. They are an amazing creature in the remake. They're less annoying, and thus they're more fun to fight. And their movement and animation and sound design is so good. And I just, super sad they haven't come back.
Well, they've actually ramped up the horror aspect of the chimeras by explaining where they get them from.
Yeah.
It's heavily hinted, if not outright said, that Umbrella has kidnapped homeless women, implanted them with the chimera DNA in an egg, and just they've cloned the successful ones.
it's so horrifying and very Cronenberg, and it is completely horrifying, but it makes for a very creepy looking monster.
Yeah, it's right up there with survivors cracking open the heads of kids to extract a hormone or chemical from their brains while they're still awake.
Yeah,
the beta
non-beta
non-serotonin or serotonin.
Beta serotonin.
Terror sweat.
That crap in their heads.
Yeah, terror sweat. I mean, also, like, remakes, we have an entire orphanage full of test subjects. Oof.
Yeah. Umbrella's horrible.
Umbrella, you're dark, man. You're dark, Umbrella. Good lord.
Yep.
I'm starting to think Umbrella aren't the good guys.
Really?
Are we the baddies?
So back to the remake. Also speaking of the monsters, one thing I also really liked in this was how I love that the boss fight arenas have been remixed considerably. They've added like the balcony for Plant 42. The Aqua Ring is like this, it makes no fucking sense, but it is terrifying for someone like me who has an issue with underwater areas and sharks. But it's also it's incredible. And then even the both spaces you fight the snake, I think moving the second yawn fight to the library was a genius choice. It's a good call. It's a really good call. I do wish you could have opened the door to the second floor of the mansion from there instead of having to fucking backtrack. But that was
also a secondary point for visually. Why does the library have a ladder but not like just a staircase to get to the second floor of that library?
It was built in the 60s and
Oswald Spencer is an asshole.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I'm like, he can't even get up there.
He doesn't need to get up there.
Spencer can't even enjoy his own books.
Send one of his servants up there.
Yep. Let's see, where is... I actually have a note.
It increases my thought of him as Mr. Burns.
I mean, it does. Yeah, it does increase that. Like, I recently, like, there was like an article, I think just today, about like the remake, and they were talking about the yawn fight, but then like they mistakenly said, "Oh yeah, you fight him more times," and I was like, "No, you don't.
You fight him twice.
You fight him the same amount of times as the original. It's just that the location for the second fight is shifted. Mm-hmm. You still fight him the same amount of times.
Technically, you only fight him once. You can actually only fight him once.
Well, yeah.
Just in doing so, you lose one of the best shotguns in the game.
If you're playing as Jill.
Right.
Does that not happen if you avoid it? You can't avoid it with Chris, right? Because he doesn't get the shotgun until the Aqua Ring.
Yeah, you can avoid it. You can avoid it as Chris. Yeah. That's if I recall.
In fact, you should avoid him as Chris.
I think you guys. I have to look up the file because I still have the file for that. But when I streamed it in 2016, I'm pretty sure that we avoided that. We didn't get because Richard doesn't come back for that segment. He gets set aside. Yeah.
Yeah, because like when I replayed it, I fought Jan, so it was a different in different set of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do like that each area still pretty much got like a designated giant animal boss. You get the snake.
Yep.
You get the spider.
You get the shirk.
You get the shirk.
You get
which I mean, you also get plant.
You also get the nude naked guy.
Well, I mean, the real monster is man at the end, which tracks.
It tracks very much. Before we move away from Yawn, does anyone else feel bummed out he doesn't melt anymore when he dies?
Yeah.
No.
A little bit.
Oh.
Just a little. But then I also get to boop his snoot.
By stabbing it with a knife.
By kicking him.
Oh,
Take
man.
that. I mean, okay, also, like, interesting little thing that happened to me the last time I was playing. I killed a spider and forgot that it can still poison you after it's dead.
Yeah.
Whoops.
I'm trying to remember, do the spiders in the remake, when you kill them, do they release dozens of little spiders?
Not as often, no.
Not as often, but they do. Yeah, because those spiders.
Yeah, but Black Tiger definitely does.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least did the last time I fought it.
God, I'm just trying not to visualize that.
A lot of the normal ones, yeah, I don't think I try not to think about it. But
yeah, I'm crunching my headphone cable. I should probably relax and not do that.
We're all arachnophobes here, folks.
All right, so I think that should lead us into talking about the other like big additional monster, Lisa Trevor.
I thought you were going to say her father.
And George Trevor, history's greatest monster.
Mm-hmm. Have we described on the pod why we feel why this is kind of an RN joke?
I just started saying that because of like all of the stuff that he designed and like just completely ridiculous.
And it's not just the Spencer estate.
No.
He also like sorry, go on.
The Spencer estate gets rebuilt like at least 2 other separate times. Spencer makes his own version in Europe, and Ashford's make their own version in the Antarctic. And then you get to Revelations 1 and the boats.
The boats, plural.
The boats.
Plural.
Boats, yeah.
And we even have suspicions that given the amount of stuff in Raccoon City that's so similarly bonkers that there's some connection there. That's why. So whenever we see some weird,
let's not forget Delvey though. There's a connection there.
Yeah, it's like the little references in RE7 is that the shadow puzzles were installed by Trevor and Chamberlain in the early 90s. Now, obviously, it couldn't be George Trevor because he was long dead, but it could certainly be a relative that survived, like a cousin or brother, sister, something, uncle.
So before we go any further, though, George Trevor was an architect who had a bit of a penchant for mixing in puzzles into his designs, and he's hired by Oswald E. Spencer to design the Arclay estate. Well, he does, and is invited with his family to visit the estate. He couldn't make it initially, having to meet a previous client, but he gets there a few days later to find out his wife and daughter have moved on, not actually realizing they've been captured and used as subjects in Spencer's experiments. George escapes into the grounds, but gets lost and can't remember everything he's added, or things have been changed around by Spencer. And he meets his death at his own headstone. So, George Trevor, a small impact, a small part of the story, huge impact on the games.
That part always kills me because it's not even like really his grave. It's Spencer like giving him another fucking prank. It's like, haha, look at your grave. But like, there's a button there, George. Just press the button. It leads to a ladder into the basement. God, Trevor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great. He's dead,
dumbass.
you jerk.
It scared him. It scared him to death.
It's just
there.
like the Red Foreman, like that 70s show thing, like you dumbass.
But Lisa Trevor and her mother would be injected with with two of the first strains of the progenitor virus. Lisa's mother would die almost immediately, but Lisa would be one of the few people to survive exposure to that virus and to the T virus and a whole lot of other viruses.
Mm-hmm.
There's three stooges of viruses.
Basically, yeah, I was going to say
that. I'm sorry.
Nice.
So what you're saying is she's immortal.
No, in fact, the slightest breeze could...
Immortal. Oh, this cute little cuddle bug here is pancreatic cancer.
I mean, they kept doing it. They just kept like piling on new viruses on top of viruses on top of viruses on her.
And I think at one stage they even give her a parasite.
They do. It's the nemesis parasite.
It is. Yeah. It's. I'm looking at it right now because you can. So for our listeners out there, you can actually track down the Wesker's Report 2. So if you would like to know more, you can go track that down because and actually the version that's on the fandom.com Resident Evil wiki has two different English translations as well as the original script in Japanese if you would like to translate it yourself. So yeah, it's got details like that. But the big interesting thing that ends up happening because of this is because of these events around some point in the 1990s. Or I guess at some point, during these experiments on Lisa, is where William Birkin begins to see the roots of what will become the G virus in Lisa, and the way that just kind of the way that everything sort of, I don't know, congeals or coalesces. And it's always something that's been interesting to me about the lore, about how it all comes back to this one. Partly it comes back to this one character, and then also how it's such a.
Well, she is patient zero.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And a completely innocent teenager.
Oh, totally.
I think she was even 11 when she was infected.
Jesus.
Possible.
I thought she was a teenager. Wow.
Yeah.
But all the viruses.
Hang on. Okay, the Capcom USA translation. According to the reports, she was at the research center from the very moment it was first built. She was 25, but we didn't know her name or know why she was here. She was to be used as the experimental subject host for the T virus. The day we began the experiment was November 10th, 1967. They did T virus experiments on her for all of 11 years.
So she was 25 when Birkin and Wesker arrived, right?
Yeah, roughly around there when they were.
So 11 years, she'd be about 14.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Math. There we go.
But this kind of the side effect of all these viruses being tested on her was that Lisa became incredibly strong, near invulnerable, had massive regenerative capabilities, and also completely and utterly batshit insane. To the point where she fixated on having her mother. And when the Umbrella researchers tried to calm her by having an assistant go in there to calm her down, she killed the assistant and ripped off her face.
Mm-hmm.
Fake mommy.
Mm-hmm. Fake mommy.
Mommy issues to the extreme.
Yep. And the way that you deal with her when you do have like your final confrontation with her is to open up the casket with her mom's corpse inside. And then she just picks up her head, says mother, and jumps away.
Yeet.
I mean, that's a different weird thing all on its own, but...
Yeah.
Not actually the end of Lisa Trevor, though.
Oh, no.
She's... Spoilers, but in the Umbrella Chronicles... It is the Umbrella Chronicles, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Albert Wesker is trying to escape the mansion before it explodes. And he is the last person to come into contact with Lisa Trevor, leading to a fight in the mansion entrance, I think.
Yeah, she pursues him all the way from like the underground to the entrance of the mansion at the end.
Where he traps her under a chandelier, yeets out of there as the place explodes.
Which is
it's a very Wesker thing.
Yeah, I mean, also like a more depressing ending for her.
There was never going to be a happy ending for her.
That's true.
Yeah, but it's like you would, in a classic scenario, you would hope that she would actually kill him because he's kind of closer to one of her, creators.
Abusers. Yeah.
Yeah, abusers, creators, and like say, Chris and Jill, who are, also there out of like terrible circumstance. He's a villain. She should be able to get him, but she can't because
The thing is, as well,
he's the player is playing as him. Yeah.
yeah, and it's not the role that like she can play in the series. So like that as like you like that they have a confrontation, but you kind of hate how it ends because it feels bad, man.
kind of point though. At the end of the day, Wesker succeeds. He gets whatever information he wants. His enemies think he's dead. He can go into a degree of anonymity and just start building up what will eventually be the force that takes on the Rockford estate.
Yeah, the hairy creature. Everything that I'm trying to come up with for HCF is going in a very weird direction. I'm not gonna finish that. I don't know, hairy.
Those guys.
The first thing that's coming to mind is hemorrhoids.
Harry Cooper?
Harry Cooper Foundries. Yes.
Hemorrhoid
They're
carrier
cranky.
force.
Oh, no, that's worse. That's way worse.
Sorry, not sorry.
I mean, yeah, like it makes everything that happened to Wesker like, yeah, he totally won that round.
Mm-hmm.
Although, speaking of Wesker, I do want to point out that Chris Redfield manages to do what nobody else did in the entire series and really get under Wesker's skin. And it's going to be very quick. At the end of the game, where Wesker captures Chris in his scenario, he takes him to look at Tyrant. When Wesker explains it, Chris actually laughs at him and calls him pathetic. He's the only person in the franchise to ever get that reaction out of Wesker, and it's why Wesker hates him.
Mm-hmm.
He laughed at me that one time. Oh, I'll get him.
Damn you, Redfield.
I despise Chris. Yeah.
It's actually very interesting is that the voice actor for Wesker in this game, Peter Jessup, he was best known to me as a Vision on Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Oh my God, that's right. I was wondering why that name was familiar.
Yeah, and I was like, oh man, that is. And after that, I started hearing it. I was like, oh yeah, I can definitely hear it. I like Wesker's performance a lot in this, like in Remake specifically. I think he has a really good line between like at the beginning seeming more just like a cool under pressure leader, which then turns into very cold and like clinically sinister towards the end.
He's also the voice of Sovereign in Mass Effect.
Oh,
Holy
wow.
shit.
That's...
Wow.
I'm looking that up. Yes, Sovereign and a whole bunch of other characters. Holy cow.
Man.
And
Yeah.
Mirak in the Dragonborn DLC for Skyrim.
And also, I just noticed Paladin Dance.
Dance.
Oh,
Oh, wow. Well, that's neat.
So,
Learn something new every day.
Yeah. But Lisa Trevor kind of ends up going back subtly now. Lisa Trevor is kind of like the first victim of Umbrella. And it's kind of fitting that she dies where she suffered. But of course it's also heartbreaking because this is a young girl who was on the verge of becoming a young woman who never got that chance. She was tortured, abused, and made into a monster. And she will not get justice until 2019's Resident Evil 5, when Wesker is killed. And even then, Wesker is not the first person to test her.
Yeah.
All the other researchers died at the Arklay incident.
right.
I mean,
far
it's like
out, man.
You got Burke and Wesker and all of like the ArcLight staff
Mm-hmm.
that are really like the core people that were dealing with her. But like also they tortured her for years with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Years.
Over and over and over again. Like like over a decade's worth of horrible experimentation. And then when they felt that they'd finally gotten everything they could out of her, they dispose her.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work, but they thought that
They threw her
could,
away.
Like, yeah, they just, casually just toss her out.
She was no longer a person to them. She's just a sample, one to be disposed of. But what's also disheartening is that the one person behind all her suffering doesn't get justice. He just gets killed. He isn't brought to justice. He isn't taken to court. He's an old man who gets his heart ripped out by Wesker.
Yeah, that is a bummer.
Yeah. It's a...
I mean, the whole thing with Spencer does feel like a bummer, kind of a letdown.
It does.
It's not just her. It's every person who suffered in Raccoon City.
Yeah. Like over 100,000 people.
Yep. The Spencer thing is definitely something I'd love to get into at some point because when I'm going to briefly touch again on Resident Evil 5 is that it was weird that was the one I disconnected from the franchise and like didn't play for like 3 years, I think. Because I don't think I even bought it until after Downcast was shot. So that would have been that would have been 2012 sometime. Yep. And despite the fact that it has all of these story elements that are pivotal to this part of the, what we're talking about now, the history. And it's always bugged me that it doesn't feel like it resolved. And even like, as we've done these different remakes and things like that, it's not become a very consistent through line to see this guy's influence. Like they try to drop these hints. And it's interesting also in this context of coming back to Lisa and the Spencer state and things like that. Like, as we were pointing out, the way that he sort of immortalizes, possibly, this is being a potential headcanon of him immortalizing Lisa as the saint of resurrection and the unkill and immortality, the way that it's, that she was this, because we think of also you think of like sainthood and how saints have to die and to suffer to reach that level of divinity, or we think, and I'll be very sparse discussing this.
Just a little bit there. Saints actually have to have proof. A saint will actually be only granted if there's been a proven miracle.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's
if someone suffers, they become a martyr.
That's
sorry
right.
there.
Yep. No, that's cool. I thank you for that distinction, the correction there, because I've it's one of those things I don't have that much of a background in that. So as we talk about like logic things and coming back to the elements of how like the remake has a certain internal logic, and it's kind of interesting with Lisa to see a subversion of those elements and those thematic or kind of the gratification elements of the story done in ways that are actually kind of a little more rooted in, but in the real world, shit just happens. These people just die. There is justice not really being served. Or in the case of, as we're really kind of discussing now, Wesker wins, which is interesting that, there's the Sam Raimi had the 3 crucial rules of horror that he explained to a conversation of Joel and Ethan Coen. The innocent must suffer, the guilty must be punished, and the hero must taste blood to be a man. And he also suggested the 4th law, which is that the dead must walk, which is obviously can be interpreted in many different ways. And what's interesting about that is that we have the first rule and the other 2 are sort of discarded. The third is, I guess, sort of live up to by the player's experience in Resident Evil, because, you have to lose, you have to die, or you have to kill, you have to slay the monster to reach a sense of empowerment. But it just, I don't know, it just intrigues me to think of this in these contexts, and then also realize that there's the plus and minus of it. Lisa doesn't get sort of her closure because Barry even states in the scene with Jill and Barry facing her at her mother's tomb that I don't think that thing is really dead. that he even, Barry doesn't believe that she's fully gone. And when the place blows up, there's still a chance there's a further cave system that she's still alive in.
Yeah.
And
No, she's trapped under a chandelier.
right, or it's trapped under the chandelier in Umbrella Chronicles. Because the reason why I make the distinction is because in Umbrella Chronicles, the canonization of that is kind of, they haven't integrated all of it yet, but it's like it's very much like they pick out the pieces. So we don't know. So it's true. It could be that she ends up under a chandelier and then gets blown up.
Or
Anyway.
she could be still out there.
She could be out there somewhere. Now I'm just imagining
waiting for new revenge.
Either new revenge, which would be awesome if they did as we've talked about, the idea of a new Raccoon City where they rebuild it in the crater of what was left, and then kids go out into the forest and hear these sounds of chains, and it leads to all these ghost stories around the campfire about the story of Lisa Trevor. That actually would make an interesting sequel. I don't know if it'd be great, but that'd be fun. But
Well, they'd all be wearing radiation suits.
that's true. That wasn't well.
I'm still not entirely sure if that's even if that's accurate anymore. Or if it was. I was always confused about how radioactive it was.
Yeah, because that's
when they destroyed Raccoon City.
When they destroyed Raccoon City, right? Yeah, because it's the imagery of the mushroom cloud. But I remember hearing there's some version I want to say where it's not a nuke, it's it's like a firebomb.
Yeah,
it's like a purifier bomb essentially.
Thermobaric bomb.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but. Anyway, sorry,
I was thinking in terms of how Umbrella Corps kind of makes it sound like Wesker's alive again. So, Lisa, you still got your chance for revenge. Go get him. Get him.
On who, though?
Whoever that guy is now. Get him. Just get him.
Just go get it, girl. Go get your vengeance on.
So,
but also, George Trevor created extra rooms that he didn't tell anybody about, and that cracks me up.
Yeah, George Trevor, I think, because from what I've read, there was this kind of school of architecture where it was very in vogue to add secret rooms, either because the client requested them or just because it was something fun to do. So it's a bit like if you ever look at, say, that image, I forget the artist, it's one of the Renaissance painters, it's Adam reaching out to God. And if you look at the image of God, it's the human brain. So it's one of those artistic flares. So, finding a room where, oh hey, this plinth spins round, that's a George Trevor thing. So there's very much that school of architecture which was popular, and you saw it a lot in plantation homes or houses in Europe at the time. Kind of popular for about 250 years. Then it starts dropping off by the midpoint of the century. So I could kind of see George Trevor just getting this lord to say, hey, I'm building a house in the United States, I want you to design it for me. And just oh, yeah, great. It's by the way, I want some very discreet security systems, so extra rooms or some puzzles if you don't mind. Just ka-ching!
Oh boy, my aesthetic.
Oh boy, indeed.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
I do appreciate that the entire thing about the Trevor family still does very much humanize Umbrella's victims. And gives them a very specific story and a specific tragedy. So you can emotionally get invested in wow, yeah, no, these guys really fucking suck.
Yeah, it gives them a face, or in Lisa's case, about 5 or 6 of them.
That's good, sir.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Accurate.
Nice.
But there are quite a few characters in both the remake and the original game. We're not going to be covering all of them because there's more in-depth appearances from them in other games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So at this point, I think we're only going to be covering Joseph Frost, who's going to get about 1 paragraph.
Because he is Joseph.
Yeah. Richard Eichen. just because of how important he is. And who else would we say? Rebecca or Enrico?
We were going to talk about Rebecca, but like a little bit just in her
Yeah.
context in Remake 1, because it's a very different character than in 0.
Yeah, and I think we're going to have a short bit about Barry.
Right.
Yeah, because he's Barry.
Yeah, and also what this all speaks to especially is that the increase in the quality of the writing and the cutscenes and the performances really allowed in the remake that the characters are able to connect a lot more. And as I think as we're saying, like to even like talk about Joseph, like the fact that we get consistent expressions on his face, and like he gets to be the guy with the video camera on his shoulder that goes into the helicopter to find Kevin's corpse, and Kevin's new, by the way. That was
yeah, Kevin is new.
Yeah,
Because they realized they only had one helicopter pilot for 2 teams.
Right. Well, they had 2 helicopter pilots, but it also was because Dewey was supposed to have been the original pilot in the original. But what happened was that they wanted to get Dewey to survive for Resident Evil 0, so they had to add Kevin, who I think technically works, because I think because there was a long time ago, there was the discussion of who is that mysterious extra person in the stars photo in Resident Evil 2.
Oh yeah, the one stars member you could not identify.
Exactly.
So it's not Rebecca because she's taking the picture.
Yeah, right.
I'm not in the picture.
Hi, I'm not in this.
We'll get the fastest out of the way, Joseph.
Yes.
So, very
Snappy
little,
bandana.
Yeah. Not great with dogs.
No.
But
No, he loved the wrong puppy.
There's not a lot of information about him just because he dies so quickly. He dies in the intro. But what little information we do have is that he's actually good friends with Chris Redfield and Forrest Spire.
Mm-hmm.
Buds.
Often going out for drinks with them. So you can imagine the effect his death would have on Chris. Because he's not only lost one friend, he's lost both his best friends.
Mm-hmm. Or at least it's kind of his the people that like you see the most at work. Like you get that certain rapport, in the workplace, right?
He's 2 best work buds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And especially when you're working in this kind of field, I mean, there's a sense of life and death and danger and things like that. And so these are the people you trust, you bond with, because you want to go do the right thing. You want to be the cop, or you want to be the hero. And these are the people that are going to help you in those messes. They're, it's like there's that rush of camaraderie of, man, we're going to go save the world together. And, oh no, so-and-so can't save the world with me. This doesn't feel right that they're gone. No.
Chris, I just want to say that your little thing there was probably longer than Forrest was on the screen.
Or Joseph.
Yeah.
Both of them, in fact.
I do appreciate that you're able to find Forrest. And I mean, I don't appreciate that the remake kind of sticks you with one dangerous zombie mode, and you can't turn it off. So fuck you, Forrest, on that level. But the entire area and having him come back like that is still really cool, though.
Yeah, it's cool.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very moody area.
Yeah, better than the patchy slot, though, which is where...
Oh, good lord.
Oh, fucking hell.
Yeah, the less we say about the better.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's just move on to talk about Richard.
Yeah,
Richard,
yeah. I'm excited to talk about this one.
Of
Richard!
Every character in that game, though, in the remake, Richard's probably the one who gets the most work.
Mm-hmm.
Just because in the original game, he's essentially a timed mission. When you find him, you have to get the anti-venom to save his life, and then he just gives you a radio and dies. If you don't, he dies, and I'm still trying to remember, do you get the radio off him?
But you do. Yeah. He dies no matter what, and you get the radio off him.
Yeah.
Yep.
You lose out in a cutscene.
Yeah, basically.
In the remake, they really beef up his character. He goes from being the radio guy to possibly the heart of the team.
Mm-hmm.
He's also got quite possibly one of the most tragic backgrounds in the Stars team.
It makes me sad every time I think about it.
His younger sister was murdered in front of him. And it's had an effect on him where if he finds he is a big brother to someone, like older than them on the team. He takes on a big brother role for them, which in this case was probably Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
And it's...
Yeah.
But the heroic nature of Richard is that he will do whatever he can to save someone's life. He never wants to see them die in front of him again. And he actually does that quite tragically in the remake. If you're playing as Jill, Richard will help you against Yawn in the second fight. And as Yawn rushes to attack Jill, is it the second fight or is it the first fight?
It's the first one.
It's the first fight in the attic.
Yeah, first fight in the attic, sorry. Yawn will actually go to attack Jill. Richard will push her out of the way and get killed by Yawn instead. In Chris's scenario, it's the fight against Neptune. Neptune's about to attack Chris. Richard pushes him out of the way and he gets eaten by the shark. But it speaks a lot about Richard and the sacrifice he'd actually make for people he cares about. That despite being sick, possibly even dying, he just throws himself in front of them to protect them. And this is basically the guy in charge of communications.
Mm-hmm.
Good guy.
Yeah, as we were saying before, I think you brought this up last time, Paul, was that, you know, the Bravo team, you know, really is your support team. They're the ones that are, you know, behind the line. And so this is a guy who is, when confronted with, I'm now on the front lines of what's going on, he is without hesitation.
He doesn't back down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the other interesting thing. I think part of the reason we're pointing out how much we like Richard about how his character's evolved. I mean, obviously, we really liked how he evolved just in the remake itself. But what was interesting was, of all things, Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles, the gun game, has a wonderful scenario where you get to play as Rebecca in the mansion before the events of Resident Evil 1 or Resident Evil Remake, I guess, whatever the case, and
You know.
yeah, before the Alpha team arrives, and you get to have Richard and Rebecca as partners going through the mansion together, and that material, the writing is really good. The voice acting is very good. It's very, like, it adds those extra layers to the point that it's like, if they are, you know, if any time we ever see a Resident Evil 1 remake or another adaptation in any medium, if it's a book or it's a movie or it's a comic or whatever, it's like there's always, I think, for at least for me, speaking for myself, there's gonna be that little extra sting when Richard goes down, because like now we know more about him. He's got this better backstory and all of that. And yeah, and I mean, I love his reaction now when he gets injected with the serum. It's like, does it ever not hurt? You know, that reaction.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's a lot of stuff about Umbrella Chronicles that isn't great and canonically feels kind of weird, but the nightmare scenarios with Rebecca and Richard are great, and they feel like they fit within the remake and just add to the character. And I think that's like the best kind of stuff that you can have, which is why we like how they expanded Richard's character. It's like it really gave him more, and it gave him a moment where you really get to connect with him and then feel bad that he's gone.
And to make you even feel even worse, there is a letter from Richard to his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's so sad.
Oh, man.
It bums me out.
Probably the only character from the Stars team I actually feel sorry gets killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the one, like I feel the most, like, it is genuinely sad that he dies like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
the others, they don't flesh out quite as much. I'm sad about Kenneth though, because he's just also, he's a chemist. He's not.
Yeah.
He's not made to to get into the middle of these like fights, and like a zombie just like comes right at him, and that's it.
I mean, the fact that he actually survived
through the night.
2 nights.
Yeah.
And then he gets killed just as his backup 2 rooms away.
Mm-hmm. That really bums me out. It's very much like a classic like slasher or like horror movie where your friend is like literally 1 room away and like is like yelling out for like your help, and you can't hear them, or you're too far, or you're just not there in time, and you just see the aftermath, and it is a huge bummer.
It's kind of like you can see into the room. There's two mirrors. There's not mirrors. There's two windows. You can see into the other room just fine. You just turn your head away just that last second, just as it all goes down.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh God, no.
But I mean, like as I did say though, the Stars Bravo team probably had no right being out there. They're chemists and technical experts. They're rear echelon. They should be the ones back at base or coming in when the area's been secured.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking too. Is the Alpha team secures like a landing zone and they set up a base of operations and
not even that, Chris. That's military thinking. Like, they're cops.
Yeah.
You clear the area, and then you bring in the crime scene guys.
Yeah, that's right. As we were thinking, it'd be more like a police raid. If they knew where the house was, which they don't, but they're looking in the area. But yeah, it's reconnaissance. They find out where it is.
For the house. They're just looking for like cannibals.
Yeah.
They're looking for the Manson family and not realizing the fucking viral apocalypse is going on in a hidden mansion.
Yep. That's how it goes.
So moving on then, who shall we take on next?
Well, there's Rebecca.
Yeah, Rebecca. And, one of the things I love about Rebecca's, at the very least, as we're saying, like, this adds this level of tragedy in the way that these elements are executed, is that Rebecca, got that change from, being very, meek, to be, as in she was a squealy damsel in distress. And so here, although she definitely still gets in jeopardy the same way she does in the first game, which leads to Resident Evil 0 problems, which we'll get to that. Apparently...
Well, actually, just before you go on though, I do want to point out, Rebecca is a badass in Resident Evil 0, but by the time Chris meets her in the remake, she's probably running on fumes. She hasn't slept in 2 days. She's an 18-year-old who's been through traumatic experiences, and whatever adrenaline she's been pumped up on probably drained away hours ago.
Oh yeah, certainly. Totally agree. Yeah, my point is more of the perception of the character more than anything, just because because the point I'm actually trying to get at is how apparently when they were balancing out the characters for the remake and the changes they were going to make, Mikami wanted, he understood that Resident Evil 0 was still probably going to happen, so he wanted to kind of beef up her role and make her at the very least more resilient, so that she's not crumbling apart into nothing, into just be like, oh no. The interesting thing is, apparently some of the writers and some of the staff at the studio, at the company, thought that they wanted to keep Rebecca in that because they thought that made her cute, that made her this likable, like, damsel in distress sort of thing. I guess what I mean is, like, as I think Vanessa, this is kind of your moment to mention what you had thought about with regards to rescuing Rebecca in Chris's scenario in the remake.
Well, it's just that you're in the first floor and you've just unlocked one of the rooms, and you're going in there trying to, like, turn on the light and rifle things, and you hear, like, Rebecca going, like, and, like, oh no. And it's like, oh no, Rebecca's in danger. I better go save her. And she doesn't even use her handgun. And I know she has it. I know she has a handgun. I know that it's hard to fight a hunter with a handgun, but she doesn't even aim it at him. She just kind of trips and falls over, like, near the door, and you have to save her. And it's just like, oh God, why did I throw away my grenade launcher? I had 2 magnums yesterday. Oh, why did I give them to Billy? Damn it, Rebecca. Damn it,
Billy
me.
Cohen. And Chris is just who's Billy Cohen?
Chris goes like, who's that? And she goes, nobody. My cat. Shut up. I mean, what struck me about Rebecca as a character in Remake, which I do think at least works in tandem with RE0, is that especially after Richard dies, she's very subdued. She gets very tired, and just, you can tell she's worn out and exhausted by everything that is happening.
I think she's kind of at that point where she realizes she's the last member of the Bravo team.
Yeah, like she is legitimate. Like she breaks down and cries, and it's a very genuine moment. And she's just like, okay, all right, you know what? I have to keep going. It's fine. And after that, it is pretty much like, well, I found out there's like a whole bunch of T virus here. I think we should blow up the place. And I'm like, well, maybe not, but okay.
That's collected a little thing called evidence.
Right.
I mean, maybe not, Rebecca, but okay. I know you've been through a lot. Sure.
It's been a rough couple of days, but you know we have a job to do.
Yeah,
that includes
but, like,
collecting evidence.
I appreciate that she does come across as someone who has been through the ringer and is just very tired. And at the end,
she's running fumes.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
But before we move on, I just do want to point out one of my favorite lines in the original game is, I was performing, it was from her, she's saying, I was performing maintenance on the helicopter.
Yeah.
Right before we crashed.
But to be pedantic, the exact line, because I'm glad you bring this up. It's a silly line, even especially in its real form. Exactly what it is. I serviced the helicopter recently, but something went wrong with the engine.
People died, Rebecca.
Damn it, Rebecca.
Yeah. As we were commenting on this last time about Mikami having pretty much noticed right away that not caring about the voice acting was a big mistake, and I guess that was a big push for this one. Was he really wanted to make the story and characters, be good? It's not a case of having bad taste. It's just that he didn't care, or he thought he didn't care, and it's like I'm gonna do my best to rectify that. So. Yeah, and
at least in the remake, Rebecca's no longer the supposed mechanic of their helicopter.
Yeah, it fixes a localization, because for folks to know it was apparently a localization error, because if you look at the original Japanese subtitle, which is meant to be the original line that the writers wrote, it's that I know it was serviced recently, or someone fixed it. It was repaired recently. It's like roughly that, and
yeah, that's entirely different.
Yeah. So,
although I just want to say I wouldn't put it past the incompetence of the RPD that they get the medical expert to perform maintenance on machinery.
It's a very Brian Irons thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Damn you, stars!
Damn you, Irons.
Yeah.
And
you bastard.
Kind of just moving on to the most meme-tastic member of Stars, Barry Burton.
Barry!
He has this!
He's the master of
unlocking our hearts because we adore him.
And maker of sandwiches.
I love that the original is still technically in canon, in the sense that, like, they keep making fun of Barry's bad jokes. Especially
in Revelations 2.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, okay. So the things he said in 1 are still canon. They're just ridiculous, and everybody knows it.
I love that so much. I love, one of the things I actually love in the way they kind of amplify the performances in Barry is there really is God, he looks haunted through so much of the experience. Like, even though he's like, obviously he's reacting to situations that are being thrown at him, but that there's also this sense of dread, and the way they like designed his face, and like the way they give him those like gaunt eyes, like it looks like Wesker's been probably working him for weeks, and that's
the face of a man who realizes his family are in mortal danger.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. It looks like he has not slept well in a while, and he's been he's trying to think every decision carefully and not emotionally react or give away what's going on. And so, like, I especially love the way that they redid the scene in the guardhouse when Jill hears him talking from behind the door. It's got that great split screen shot over the door.
Love that.
And then when they even actually come in, there's actually, okay, speaking of camera angles, I wanted to point this out. People can look for this. They actually were able to get one moving camera angle. Apparently there's a second one somewhere, according to the cutscene director, but that the camera actually dollies across from left to right. so they had to pre-render the background and move the camera in time with that in the in-game camera at the same time. So that's a cool touch. Anyway, I like that scene though. Barry's more overt. He's actually more, suspicious, but you also can feel like he's conflicted. Like I really appreciate those that detail, and
that really comes across.
Barry's the kind of guy you feel like lying does not come naturally to him.
yeah, he's an honest man.
But this is a man who has a connection to every STARS member. He's been lifelong friends with Enrico.
Oh God, I forgot about that. Yeah.
He's known Chris Redfield for years and personally recruited him. Given the fact that he is a bit of a gun enthusiast, I would not be surprised if he's friends with Forrest, who was regarded as one of the better snipers on the team, despite the fact that Chris is the better sniper. He's got a connection with every STARS member and probably treats the younger members like his kids.
God, yeah.
So the fact that he's betraying so many of them, that's probably haunting him, and it's probably haunted him years afterwards, despite the fact that straight away, when Jill finds out what's going on, she instantly forgives him and doesn't hold it against him.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's if you choose to save his life.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is also another interesting thing in the remake as well, that sequence.
Yeah. You actually get to choose
it's
to save
very
him.
well done.
So the fact is that Barry is probably one of the people you would want in that situation. Somebody looking out for you, making sure you're okay. And he can't do that. Because Wesker's fed him this lie that if he doesn't help him, he'll kill his wife and kids. And bear in mind, Barry's daughters are probably under the age of 10.
Mm-hmm. I believe so.
Yeah, I think at that point they were, I believe.
So you can see, like, even if it's just like something Wesker said to him the instant they got into the mansion, all that's weighing on him. He is probably going through the worst night of his life. The guy's a wreck by the end.
Oof.
Yep. And it's why I'm so glad canonically he doesn't die, because I'm just imagining, because I was so bummed the very first time I played Resident Evil 1 and beat it. I had, because of the walkthrough I was using, it's the one where Barry dies.
Yeah, that happened to me too originally. I got him. The difference between the remake and the original, he can die in different places in the original. So I got him dying in the lab at the very end.
Yeah, that's the case for me too. Yeah,
just the ladder going up. That's where he died for me.
Yeah, and it was just like, and you find like, and this is in the remake as well. You find the photograph of him and his family, and like the letter on the back of it, and it's just so sad.
Yeah. Oh, it's rough.
Yeah.
Oh.
If Richard's death is meant to break your heart, Barry's is meant to just rip out the heartstrings.
Mm-hmm.
It just crushes it.
Well,
it's like, oh, you felt bad about Richard? Well, get ready for Barry.
The lovable family man dies before he can escape.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. That is why I'm very happy he survives.
Yep.
I genuinely wish there was a canon scenario, like a version that you got to see all of them interacting with each other.
No, you don't want to do that. Players want choices. They don't want canon. They want to know that none of it matters because it's just going to be fine in the next game. And gameplay, people that play games for stories. Don't be silly.
Chris, how hard are you trying not to throw up right now?
How bitter are you?
The bile is deep, but it's coming up.
Oh boy.
Okay, somebody get a bucket.
Oh God.
Well, Barry's still alive though, so
yeah. But I do love the fact that they keep referencing Barry throughout the series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, people were so excited when the Mercenaries DLC for 5 came out and it had Barry and Rebecca in it. That people were like so happy about that.
One of my favorite things is in Revelations 2 where Barry uses a demolition ball to break open a door and he's just like, guess I'm the master of unlocking now.
Oh God, I forgot that
love that.
line. Oh, I need to play Revelations 2 again. Oh no.
He's like, oh, yep, yeah, Barry.
Or when
Good job.
Claire's nearly crushed, she's like, I was almost a Claire sandwich, and Moira's just like, he's still going on about that.
Yeah.
She's like, does he have to tell everybody about that? I love at the end, at the very, very end with the good ending, he does the I have this.
Dude, when Phil and I, because I don't remember if I'm pretty sure I streamed it for you guys at the time, but I remember.
Yeah, you were.
Phil and I fucking lost it at that. It's like, yeah.
He did it. He said the
did the
thing we
thing.
all like. We like when character do the thing.
Yep. Apparently that.
I just no, go on,
I was going to
first.
say, apparently, speaking to that note, reportedly the writer who was brought in to punch up the dialogue and kind of fix the scenario and everything, because the original writer was long gone. Because the English translation was done by someone who was a native English speaker, and he was saying to Mikami, but I love the colorful, silly dialogue. This is part of why I love the game. And Mikami's like, no, we can't do that again. Are you fucking crazy? So
Absolutely not.
Mikami's not very good at making good decisions.
it's a mixed decision, because it's like, because that is a weird thing. I mean, I'm actually glad I bring this up, because it's a minor point that I feel, and I almost wonder if I should phrase this as a question. Do you guys prefer the goofiness of the original, or the
Yes.
kind of okay? Yeah, I guess, because that's the thing. I felt like the quality gets better in the remake, but it is a tad bland in the way the voice acting is directed or delivered. Like, it's sort of it sucked a little. It desaturated it, just like the color palette.
The original is a cheesy Saturday Night B movie.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I kind of wish that there was a meshing of, like, I think the actors are good, but that, like, tweaking the dialogue like they did, it did kind of flatten things out.
Yeah.
So if you just smashed both of them together.
Take the cheesiness of the original with the seriousness of the remake. You've got good areas that can break up the tension. You've got good comedic elements that can help relax the player and set them up for the next scary bit.
So you're basically saying this is like melting cheese on top of your broccoli.
Yes.
No, I'm saying this is basically melting cheese on top of ham.
Ooh, even better.
Yeah,
Even better.
No, that's way better. Yep. Mm-hmm. Good.
I mean, and put melted cheese on stuff, and I'm there. But, like, hot ham and cheese, that is some good stuff.
The thing it also reminds me is, like, in Remake 2, I love, you see Leon starting to get his one-liners towards the end. Like that, like when he takes on Birkin.
And not what it sounds.
3, I think, right? The one in the lab where after he gets, Annette shoots him with the thing. It's, the one I'm talking about. It's the second to last fight with him. It's like, he has that moment. It's like, okay, I can see the action hero of Resident Evil 4 starting to come out, but it's natural. He grew up to that point. It's like, I feel like that's a better meshing of the cheese with the ham.
Yeah, no, I think that the remakes of 2 and 3, writing-wise, got a very good handle on the tone.
Do you mean Hamdel?
Handle. Handle. They got a good handle on the tone. Delicious.
But I still wish we found out what happened to Barry in Chris's scenario.
Yeah, I want to know.
I will forever stick with my headcanon that Barry is in a clearing in the Arklay Forest. There's a bunch of dead Cerberus around him, a few dead zombies, and he's making pinecone versions of the stars.
Headcanon accepted.
It's like, you'll never leave me behind, pinecone Brad.
That's right, Barry. I'll never fly away.
Vanessa, I think you have another one to add to your fan art list.
I got such a growing list, like Lisa Trevor lighting her billions of candles.
Does she
I'm
ever
sorry
have to
for
go
all this
to
extra work, Vanessa.
Sorry, what?
Does she ever have to go to Ross and get more candles?
Obviously.
I do want to say sorry for all these ideas, Vanessa.
Yeah, well, the joke's on you. It's going to take me a long time to have time to get to them.
I accept that.
Oh boy. But yeah.
So I think that kind of
I think
covers everything we wanted to do.
I mean, I think that kind of wraps things up, though, because, I mean, we got to talk about all the characters, we talked about the game flow and everything, talk about the differences. I think we're good.
I did find a note. I have a few notes. Also,
okay.
I have a question, but here. Did anyone notice that George Trevor's diary, the final entry is on November 31st?
The man had been lost in darkness for days.
Fair.
Also, man found his own grave with a button on it, couldn't be asked to press the button to leave.
But
Dies.
I think he was in pitch black then because he actually used his last match.
He's like, oh no, my name, die.
This is like, well, they've got my headstone. I give up. Dead.
What a wiener.
I love how much shit we give George Trevor. It's amazing.
I'm sorry, I can't help it.
He probably doesn't deserve it, but at the same time, he's the world's greatest monster.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't, but also at the same time, I'm still gonna dunk on him.
I mean, we have genocidal, megalomaniacal maniacs wanting to destroy the world.
Not until January, not after January 21st, 2021. Huh?
You hope.
I'm going to slap you, Chris, but I was going to say, we have these characters in the games, and we're just dunking on this poor little architect who had a bit of a nerd on for puzzles.
We are the bullies.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Nerd!
Oh, man. So there's a couple more things I wanted to mention. One more thing for my notes is we didn't talk about how the layouts changes also really affects the game flow in certain areas. The mansion, most of all.
Mm-hmm.
I
definitely
love the graveyard shortcut so much.
Yeah, like logic of having that graveyard there aside, it is a fantastic shortcut.
It's so good.
They were getting ready for Halloween.
Yeah, I mean they are properly decorated.
Super proper decorated. Yeah.
I do love the multiple routes between areas. I'm not huge on the doorknob falling off thing.
I do love the little message Barry has about it. It's like, I finally fixed that crap door.
Yeah, I do like that. Also, it's funny in Chris's game because Wesker does it.
Yeah, which makes no... The only reason I can think is like, this doorknob is making me so frustrated. All right, I'll fix it. And they just write... Like, I almost wonder, like, he accidentally... He was writing hate mail to Chris, and then he changed his mind. It was like, I can't let... He doesn't know yet that I hate him so much.
Well, I don't think he does yet because Chris hasn't laughed at him yet.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Remember, Wesker's a sociopath. He just hates it when people laugh at him.
Yeah, but like Chris hasn't laughed at him yet. So at that point, he's still just like, haha, Chris is my best man. I'll show him though, or something. I don't know. My revenge thing is very confusing.
I think it's more like, Chris Redfield. He brought me a cupcake. Perhaps I shall let him live. Then it's
yes.
like, your idea is stupid, Wesker.
I love the idea that he was fixing the door so it's like Wesker in these sunglasses at night with like a little can of like WD-40.
And a little screwdriver to tighten screws. And
if I ever see that janitor, I'm going to kill him. If he's a zombie, I'll kill him again.
At that point, he's still like, I don't know why, but I also still blame George Trevor for this doorknob.
I never met the man, but I just want to blame him.
Yes.
If you actually think about it, George Trevor had nothing to do with that. That's just shoddy maintenance.
No. Oh yeah, no, that's the repair
not
guys.
Even remotely his fault.
Yep.
The flow is extremely good though, and I do like the multiple routes. I like that. I mean, this still goes back to the original, but that like the flow of the game still takes you through the mansion to the guardhouse and then like looping back around again in really interesting ways.
Mm-hmm. And I like the change to the underground, which was interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about it being less of a straight shot from mansion to the underground to the lab. Like it's like I'm torn, right? Because I love thematically, as ridiculous as it is, the chamber, to go down into it, which is just gets to the whole aesthetic of the thing. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still torn about that. But yeah,
I like the expansion, but I would prefer if it had led directly to the lab.
Yeah, just we just want a little bit more logic, because I mean that's the thing I find interesting about Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, is that the logic of getting to some of these locations, the locations themselves are not logical. I mean, the Hive 1 and 2 are fucking bonkers big for being built, without anyone knowing, in with a implied nuclear power plant, or some sort of super high power system. Anyway, but at the very least, like, the getting there makes a bit more sense. Like, you could see if it's a few, for like different entrances. But anyway, yeah, the Spencer states are goofy. The Spencer state is goofy, but we love it, and it's still really good. Anyway, the last question I had is, I did get some notes about what some of the team members went on to do after working on this, just because some of it's just interesting, and also just has some, I don't know, it kind of connects again with the future of the franchise. And I have a last word after that as well. But yeah, would you like to know more about where these developers went forward? Asking you two.
Sure.
Okay. Well, you made the effort. Go on.
Okay, thank you. So one of the planners who had previously worked on Dino Crisis 2 was Koji Kakai. He kept up with the Resident Evil series into 4 and 5 as a planner, and most recently worked on Devil May Cry 5. He was also the full game planner on Clock Tower 3, which is impressive and kind of cool, interesting. Shigenori Nishikawa was another of the planners, continued into designing on Resident Evil 4, and joined Mikami in leaving Capcom to work on Vanquish in 22. He was the lead designer on Evil Within 2, which again feels kind of telling and interesting. Interestingly, the creature and character lead designer, Kenichi Ueda, sorry, it's a hard one when my nose is stuffy. He bounced around different art department jobs, sometimes working on background modeling for Resident Evil Outbreak, Capcom vs. SNK. He did motion stuff, and he ended up directing the cinematics for Resident Evil 4 and Devil May Cry 4 at some point. So kind of did a bunch of odd jobs. The interface designer also ended up working on Evil Within 2 later, as well as designed like the title screen for Resident Evil 0. And lastly is the cutscenes director of photography, Hide Gondo, who was considered, again, as I mentioned, most of the interviews I was finding credited him as very much like the person who visualized him, and the background art director kind of made the look. So Gondo continued on to working on cutscenes for Resident Evil 4, Umbrella Chronicles, Operation Raccoon City, and even Revelations 1 before he left Capcom and became the cutscene director of the first Evil Within. So that kind of gets to, anyway. So there's kind of a parting word, which is a quote from Mikami from Famitsu, but I don't know if I just want to make sure to get everyone else's final thoughts, because I've been ranting for a bit.
Vanessa, do you want to go first?
Sure. And despite all of my going on about it and nitpicking at the puzzles, I still really, really do love this game. It is still a fantastic game. So please do not mistake any of my nitpicking for dislike. Genuine love here. Great game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. I mean, we wouldn't be doing this podcast unless we love the games. Unless it's 6. But I can see why they wanted to remake Resident Evil. It was a fantastic game to begin with, but knowing the amount that they had to cut to get it out, and then having the chance to go back and actually show the game they wanted to make originally, it's a blessing in its own way. It's just, we have this chance to look into a very unique era in video game development. Not just once, but twice. And just to see how the games have evolved from that point really is fantastic. And I'm so glad they remade the game. And just one last piece of trivia from me. So Hideki Kamiya, who's credited for the creation of Brad Vickers, admitted that when they were creating Joseph Frost, he took the name Joseph from Joseph Joestar, yes, it is a reference to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Which then explains why there's JoJo on Kamiya's Resident Evil 2 that locker in that one spot. So that is pretty awesome. I'm so glad you found that. I'm so glad you found that piece. That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, I mean,
I love that.
I don't know what more I could add. I think you both have covered, a lot of it. I will say, I guess, speaking more personally, is that the Resident Evil remake came at a time for me that I was starting to, because I was about 14, I was about 15 when it came out, and it pushed my creativity because of just being able to see the possibilities, and it inspired me. I actually used a lot of the score for temp score for my first live action short film. Not sure if Vanessa even remembers that, because God, that was a long time ago.
Oh shit.
Yeah, that was like 2007, I think. But anyway, it was a very significant thing. It was part of, it's been something that has inspired me and has inspired us, obviously. And absolutely, I've starting to poke the holes more in it, to the point that, like, I'm actually wondering if the Resident Evil 2 remake is actually better to me now. But it's I think it's an interesting point of seeing also Mikami as a developer, and seeing, like, because I love what Resident Evil 2 does, the Resident Evil remake does, Resident Evil 2002, and that watching as the franchise has evolved, it's interesting that it's learned different lessons from it, and that some cases it's like, well, we do this thing that's like that, and that is retained, and that's good, but that we have to change this thing because it didn't sell, because apparently this remake did not do well. This underperformed rather drastically, and is actually, in more of recent interviews, Mikami has stated it was the number one reason for the divergence into Resident Evil 4. And
which is a real depressing bummer that we might get into in like an actual Resident Evil 4 episode, but also because it was on the GameCube, a platform that was still mostly pushing, family friendly, more children friendly fare. It was not known for being a platform full of horror games. It was not a platform it was going to go gangbusters on.
Nintendo is a family friendly company. You look at their most profitable properties, it's the likes of Mario. You're not going to find a horror game on a Nintendo and find it's going to do very well sales-wise.
And it's the... I'm sorry, do you have... I don't want to interrupt.
Well, I mean, I still argue that RE4 isn't really a horror game either.
Right.
Which is possibly why it did do better.
It did. And
it's an action game.
Exactly.
But it's also Leon's drunken recollections.
I also... Well, my headcanon now is officially that it is Leon running a D&D campaign of his supposed adventure in Spain. And he gets Jake to play as himself. So Jake is playing as Leon.
That's pretty awesome. That explains then why of course, because then Jake would dump all the stats into acrobatics, so that's why he's able to do. Oh my God, that makes so much sense.
And he rolls a lot of 20s.
And he punches things.
Yep.
And I mean, the GameCube discussion is a long one to go into, but there are some places that I recommend to everybody to go check out about, because I feel the GameCube was stuck in the shadow of the N64, and that's another big issue for the Resident Evil remake not being successful. There's a recent video regarding Resident Evil 4. There's a couple of them regarding Resident Evil 4 from Stop Skeletons from Fighting, and they go into the sales of Resident Evil 4 and all of its the Punching Weight episode talking about ports of the game. It goes into that and how GameCube sales for Resident Evil 4 were really good, but when it then was ported to the PS2, that's when it exploded. And I don't know the circumstances of the deal, or if it was because they used sort of proprietary, code or whatever from Nintendo for the GameCube remake of Resident Evil, that perhaps that was why it didn't get ported for many, many years. But it's an unfortunate tragedy, and I find it tragic, at least from that perspective.
Because, definitely.
And just very quickly though, Resident Evil had the remake had a total sales of 4.7 million copies, nearly 4.8 million. On the GameCube, it was 1.35 million.
Yeah, it's really low.
Yeah.
It's really, really low. To this end about the evolution, there is and this will be kind of something we'll come back to in Resident Evil 4. But in Famitsu regarding Resident Evil 4, Mikami was asked, we did not think that the footage of Resident Evil 4, this is when, by the way, the Hookman demo had been shown. And Mikami says, if you refer to age regarding Biohazard, it is already like a grandfather. That is why this time, in order to rejuvenate, we inserted new DNA. Regarding 4, we are challenging ourselves to make a new Biohazard. And he said, we want users to anticipate the game instead of just buying it because it's the latest game in the series. Because, wasn't Dragon Quest like that in the Famicom era? And to do that, we injected new DNA by pulling directors and asking them to try to change Biohazard. This, of course, is what leads into things like Haunting Ground and Devil May Cry and stuff like that. And we're in the process of a full model change. The goal is not to change the style, but to have a game that would make players raise their voices and exclaim, "Oh," like in the original Biohazard. This time around, we do not say much at the front line. We only use our breaks when it is really to the point of abuse for them. And it's just kind of, this is kind of interesting final thought, because like when we get into Resident Evil 0 as well, like this is like the kind of the cap, the zeitgeist of that fixed camera, tank controls era. And it's just interesting that, it's like it does have this vibe, that I think it's kind of an interesting, kind of valid point. Where can you take this from here? And unfortunately, it took a while for the tech, I think, to evolve and over-the-shoulder shooters to take on. And so, like, Resident Evil 4 leads to Dead Space, and then Dead Space inadvertently inspires the Resident Evil 2 remake, which has now, affected the whole franchise. But anyway, it's food for thought. Anyway, God, I am talking way too much of these goddamn things.
So, I think we're going to wrap it up there.
Yep, that is it.
If you're still listening to us, God have mercy on your soul.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. The fact that we've run on for 2.5 hours kind of shows how much we've enjoyed this game. It holds a special place in our heart. And if it gets you to pick up and play either the original game or the remake, I think we've done our job. So that's all I'm going to say on the matter. I'm Castle Rook.
And
I'm Vanessa Sketch. Sorry.
It's okay. And I'm Chris Jabberwock.
We are still the most uncoordinated bunch in the world.
It's hard to do that over audio.
Yeah. And it's
real hard.
And I don't trust to have cameras and all this kind of stuff, for us to like do webcam stuff. We are who we are, and that's the best we can do.
So from all of us tonight, thank you for joining us.
Next time we will be likely covering the prequel, Resident Evil 0. If you guys have any questions, anybody listening out there decides to pick up either the original or the remake and play through them, and you want to let us know how it went, please do. We have an email. That is the SpencerEstatement@gmail.com. I believe it is exactly, got to make sure that I'm getting it exactly right, just SpencerEstatement@gmail.com. Or if you have any other questions for us for the upcoming episode about Resident Evil 0, please shoot us questions over there. Also, you can ask us questions over at our Twitter at the just a statement pod. That's a statement with an E. That is our Twitter handle. You can also find all of us on Twitter at our respective handles. Vanessa Sketch, it's Chris Jabberwock, right? Or Jabberwocky?
It's Jabberwock, yeah. I couldn't fit.
We will have links to those Twitter accounts in the YouTube video of this.
Yeah.
That too.
And
Castlework blogs. So, thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you all next time. Stay safe out there, and watch out for zombies.
Peace out.
Latest.